on this fine Saturday morning. Couldn't be any more fine. That's a lie. Probably totally could be better than Saturday. It always could be better, right? Always could be worse. But on the flip side of that, always could be better. That's how it works. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the stream. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, it's early. Dude, I was up early. I did exactly what I said I was going to do last night. I went to bed at a respectable time. I got up early, took care of some stuff. And now I'm here sitting down, ready to get to work. Actual work. I'm going to be doing actual work right now. Why would I do that to myself? Because I have an obligation to the viewing masses and to myself, honestly. It's not worth it. I will be on my deathbed in hopefully 15 years. Hopefully no more than 15 years. And I'll be like, I got up early that one Saturday. I was reading Higurashi. I had to finish that arc so badly. And I had to see what Kojima had for the end of Death Stranding 2. It was so important. It was so important. No regrets. No regrets all the way to my deathbed. But yeah, the plan for today is Death Stranding a little later, but I think we can finish this arc here today. I don't think there's a ton left. I can't 100% confirm, but I think we can finish Tokihogushi. Tokihogushi. Played a lot more of Kaname Date. Enjoying it more than the initial hours. That's good to hear. Can't wait till you hit the twist that we described before, where the title screen pops back up and it says "Sleep for Kaname Date," and then it was all a dream. Not sure if this makes sense, but kind of pissed at the plot in a good way. It's like, are you talking about like when people are like, ooh, I hate that character, but in a good way, like a character you love to hate, but then you're like, oh, it's a plot I love to hate. That would be my best guess, what you're describing, kind of. But maybe not. That's just my random guess. Stab in the dark. Anyway, for now, heavily recommending it. Alright. I'm intrigued. I should say I'm intrigued. Of course, there could be a twist that throws everything in the trash. I was literally just about to say. I'll be curious. How far is it possible to tell like how far you are in the game? Do you know by any metric, like half, even if it's like vague, like I think I'm like halfway through or something? That's what I was thinking. I thought I've heard that the game is quite short, so I was wondering if you were like, oh, I'm halfway through. Interesting. Okay. Interesting. So we, in theory, might not have to wait super long to hear final conclusions. I'm very curious. I'm very curious. So yeah, let's finish this arc with a clap. Oh, wait a second, Minai-san! Tomoe ignored Fujita's repeated attempts to stop her as she climbed out of the car and walked toward the crime scene. Sensing that something was off, he stepped in front of her and turned around, trying to block her advance. Played for around 12 hours or so. 12 hours or so, and you think you're halfway through. Okay. That's even longer than I thought it would be, if I'm being honest. Not like I'm necessarily decrying a long or a short game, for that matter. I thought it was going to be like guaranteed under 20 hours, if not even less, like 15. What the hell are you doing, Minai-san? Get out of my way. What's gonna happen is you're gonna get to the end, or what you think is the end, and then it's gonna do the sleep for Kaname-date thing, and then you have a whole nother timeline that's gonna open up on the timeline thing, and then you literally just go through a day as Kaname-date. You make some breakfast. You look at a porno mag. You look at another porno mag. And then you just kind of walk around. Can't wait for that to reveal itself. Fujita couldn't help but gasp at that quiet but fiercely wrathful remark. What on earth happened to her? This was truly the first time Fujita has ever seen a look of such rage on Tomoe's face. It had been over 2 months since Section Chief Yamamura assigned him to work with a female detective named Tomoe Minai. Even though they were the same age, he was looking at her, working as her subordinate 2 ranks below her. She was smart, but also had a surprisingly childlike side to her. She was also charming and far more approachable than the usual elite course members, complemented by the serious but attentive look of a class representative. So, even though she would frequently shout and violently lash out, he would always step in and stop her halfway. Somehow, that arrangement worked well. But he couldn't do that now. In fact, he couldn't even get close to her. If her anger before was like taking a blow from a wooden sword, right now she was wielding a real sword. There was a viciousness there that suggested that he'd be killed if he moved in any closer.
Minai-san?
Minai-san. Oh, so let's catch up really quick on what just happened. So, a car bomb went off. Assumingly, Minai thinks that it was Rina Ragu sauce came in and somehow set up a car bomb to explode on her and her sister late at night, trying to kill her, take her out. So now that's why Tomoe is pissed at the moment. I think she was hospitalized and then came out of it. Something along those lines. But I just remember that was the big thing that happened in the last one. Then, Tomoe silently walked by Fujita's side as he stood there petrified. After that, 2 detectives from the 2nd Division, who were doing crowd control, noticed the 2 of them and quickly ran to them. Why are you here, Assistant Director Minai? The scene is under the 2nd Investigation Division's control. If you step in now, you'll be compromising our authority. If you get in the way of our investigation. Out of the way! The 2 detectives from the 2nd Division who attempted to stop her were overwhelmed by her intense aura. Oh shit, she's aura maxing or whatever the fuck you'd say. And ended up backing out of her way.
Minai-san.
Minai-san. Still feeling puzzled, Fujita followed behind Tomoe and walked to the crime scene. Forensic investigation was being conducted and evidence photos were being taken throughout the site, while red police lights flashed all around them. And behind the crowd of people tirelessly working was a slightly bulging sheet laying on the ground. Uh-oh. When Tomoe began walking in that direction, a hand grabbed her from the side.
Hime-san.
Princess.
どうしたんだ? ここはあんたの担当じゃないだろ.
What's going on? You're not supposed to be here.
すみません、Hayami-san.
Please excuse me, Hayami-san.
すぐ出て行きますので.
I'll be out of here soon.
おい.
Hey! With that, Tomoe bowed her head to her acquaintance from the mobile investigation team, and then she lifted up the sheet without waiting for an answer. Stab noise. Sorry to off topic. No, it's fine. There's collectible in the game. Have 8 of 10 of them. Interesting. Are you saying that because maybe that's an indicator of how far you are, maybe? Until now, she thought she was getting used to seeing corpses. It takes a change of heart to be able to look on that, at that miserable state of human life. But right now,
姫さん
Princess. Oh no. She clenched her fist so intensely that her nails bit into her palms. A dull sound rang out as she clenched her teeth. Then, sensing the warm, rusty smell emanating from her mouth, Tomoe wiped at her lip. It was a slimy liquid. She was biting down on her lip without thinking, and she bit hard enough to cut into the meat and spout blood.
ありがとうございました、ミナイさん。
Thank you so much, Minai-san. She had a bright smile on her face when they parted ways. The image still lingered on the back of her eyelids. She was such a cute girl. She was a strong girl who wanted to put the past to rest and finally move forward. And yet, never again would she be able to see her face, to have a conversation again, or together.
みなさん、知り合いなんですか？
Minai-san, do you know her?
少し前に会って話をしたわ。
I met her just a little while ago, and we talked. Again, I brought this up, I think, last stream or the stream before of Higurashi. Obviously, we don't know the exact details, but Tomoe was playing with fire by bringing this kid into the situation. And I specifically called out, I was like, this seems like a bad... You're the adult investigator person in the situation. I know you're trying to, like, essentially use her in a way, but, like, it seemed like a bad idea. If only people would listen to me all the time. Did I read this? I met her just a little while ago when we talked.
可愛い子だったのよ。
She was such a cute girl. Trying her hardest to suppress her raging emotions, Tomoe said that and moaned. Really, really cute. She surely would have become a beautiful woman in the future. Okay. She lamented that it wouldn't come to be and regretted it.
だったらあんまり見ない方がいいぞ姫さん。
It's best not to look too much, Princess.
通報から駆けつけた時にはもうこんな状態だった。
I rushed here as soon as I got the report, but it was already like this. The mobile investigation team detective, Hayami, put a hand on Tomoe's shoulder as he said that. After taking a deep breath to cool her head, Tomoe folded the sheet down, then held her hands together and closed her eyes.
運転手は
What about the driver?
現場で唖然となっていたよ。
He was found at the site, in utter shock.
業務上過失致死の現行犯でついさっき県警に連行した。
Culprit was taken to the Prefectural Police Department's Workplace Negligence Unit.
取り調べは今のところ交通課ではなく本部捜査一課で行われる予定だ。
At the moment, the investigation is being handled by the 1st Investigation Division at HQ, rather than the Transportation Division.
捜査一課で
1st Investigation Division. Hayami nodded. The truck was allegedly driving at normal speed, but the driver only at the last second noticed the shadow of a person on the ground in a shaded area where the streetlights couldn't reach. Then, the driver quickly turned the wheel and slammed on the brakes, but couldn't get away.
証言通りブレーキの跡は確かにあった。
The brake markings corroborate that testimony.
今も現場検証中だが、少なくとも人が地面にいると分かった上で故意に引いたとは考えにくい。
On-site investigation is still ongoing, but it's hard to believe that someone would notice a person on the ground deliberately strike them.
しかも飛び出してきたのならともかく、わざわざ街灯が見えにくい場所を選んで横たわって、いや、置かれていた。
Oh yeah, I remember the whole... Okay. I'd forgotten, but now just remembered. So this whole thing with her is that she got the report that literally jumped into traffic. I forgot that this was a separate thing from the car, the explosion thing from earlier. Okay. It's all coming back to me. Moreover, this location was chosen because it's far from streetlights and hard to see whether she deliberately chose to jump into traffic or was set down there.
車道に好き好んで寝転がるやつなどいないことを考えても、事件性が極めて高いと思われる。
Considering that nobody would ever want to lay down on the road, that probability seems high.
それで一家がわざわざ。
So, is the 1st Division ever going to bother with it?
被害者は女子学生だ。おそらくマスコミが食いつく。
The victim is a schoolgirl, so the media is going to eat it up.
報道対応のことも考慮して、本部で対応した方がいいというのが 堂島課長の判断だ。
Considering the potential news coverage, Section Chief Dojima decided it would be best for HQ to handle it.
この遺体もすぐに司法解剖に回すことになっている。
Body's also supposed to be submitted for autopsy immediately.
そうですか。
Is that so?
それよりも姫さん、ここは早く引き上げた方がいい。
More importantly, Princess, you should get out of here right away.
今ここには二課の
This area is under the 2nd Division's authority. Unfortunately, as Hayami whispered that to Tomoe, Section Chief Okabe and Kojima from the 2nd Division had arrived.
なんだね君たちは。
What are you doing here?
ここは捜査二課の担当ですよ、南井次長。
You realize that the 2nd Division is in charge of this location, right, Assistant Director Manai? After a quick glance at the two of them and their magnanimous demeanor, Tomoe turned away from the sheet and rose to her feet. Sheet, feet, sheet, feet. Akabe stepped between her and Hayami, as if to say they were in the way, and made Kojima lift the sheet.
見るに大変ありさまだな。
I can hardly bear to look.
生前の面影、跡形もなしか。
There's not even a trace of how she looked when she still lived, huh?
後で写真をお渡しします。その辺で。
I'll give you the photos later, so let's leave it at that. Having said that, Hayami somewhat forcefully began laying the sheet back down. He was being considerate of Tomoe.
どうだね、事件性は。
So what can you tell us about the incident?
遺体の司法解剖が済んだ後で正式に報告します。
An official report will be provided after formal autopsy.
鑑識の見解では、被害者は歴死する直前まで生きていたと思われますので、一家主導で事件捜査を行う予定です。
Forensics team believes the victim was alive up until she was struck. We are planning to conduct this investigation led by the 1st Division at HQ.
マスコミが喜んで飛びついてきそうな事件だな。
Media will be happy to jump on an incident like this.
自殺なら受験勉強の疲れ、失恋からの絶望。殺人なら怨恨暴行といったところか。
If it's a suicide, they'll say she was overworked studying for exams or fell to despair from a broken heart. If it's murder, they'll peg it as a grudge or assault.
後始末をするこちらの身にもなってもらいたいものだ。
I'd love to be the person who has to clean this up. Tomoe did everything to resist the urge to shout at him and tell him to keep his mouth shut if he doesn't know the circumstances.
とりあえず捜査一課が出張ってくるのなら我々の出る幕はないな。
Anyway, as long as the 1st Division takes over, there's no reason for us to take action.
あとは地域課に任せて我々は引き上げてもいいかね。
After that, we can leave it to the Community Affairs Division and it'll be out of our hands.
どうぞ、お疲れ様です。
Please do. Thank you for your assistance.
そんなわけだから南井次長、君たちも引き上げたまえ。
With that in mind, Assistant Director Manai, you all should be on your way.
手柄を横取りするつもりだったかもしれんが、当てが外れたな。
If you came here expecting to steal our thunder, you're mistaken. Damn, she should just murder this guy. Tomoe wasn't interested in playing along with Akabe's sarcastic banter, so she pretended not to hear and turned to Hayami.
速水さん、後で検視結果を聞かせてください。
Hayami-san, please let me know the autopsy results.
それと、念のために、運転手の聴取内容もお伺いできますでしょうか。
And just in case, could I get a transcript of what the driver said?
ああ、わかった。
Sure, got it.
それと、この周辺の遺留物も、できれば。
And if possible, anything left in this area?
ああ、それは私たちを通して県警に依頼してもらいたいものですね。
If you'd like anything else, you'll have to ask prefectural police through us.
この山は二課の担当なんですから、規則を遵守していただかなくては困ります。
This incident is under the authority of the 2nd Division, so it could prove troublesome if you don't follow proper regulations. Kojima stepped between Tomoe and Hayami as he said that. It was obvious to everyone that he was just saying that to earn points with Akabe, but Tomoe concealed her emotions and responded, of course, while nodding.
この件の情報提供については、明日、所長の決裁を得た上で依頼をさせていただきます。
We'll submit a formal request tomorrow after getting consent from the chief.
お手数ですが、ご対応よろしくお願いします。
Sorry for the trouble, and thank you for your support.
なるほど、虎の意を狩るですか。
I see. Fox is borrowing the tiger's authority.
そこまで手柄を立てたいんですかね。
You want the glory that badly? Tomoe silently asked herself which of us is the fox here, but responded with a wry smile as though she didn't care. However, Kojima kept going, seemingly spurned by the threat of incurring her boss's anger.
さすが所長に妹を差し出して関心を買っただけのことはありますな。
Naturally, all you had to do to buy the chief's favor is give him your little sister. Fucking hell. Dude. Murder him.
使えるものは親でも使う。いやいや、幹部候補生ともなれば考え方が違う。
Use everything at your disposal, even your family. My executive candidates have a completely different way of looking at things.
だと
What's that?
妹は玉残しに乗せて自分もまたその恩恵に預かる。
Have your sister marry into power and reap the rewards yourself.
遠望診療というか、なかなかできることじゃありません。
That's not an easy thing to accomplish. Got some profound foresight.
まあもっともそうでもしなければ、女性の立場でそれだけの地位を得ることは難しいものですからな。
After all, it'd be extremely difficult for a woman to get into your position otherwise. Normally, she would have cursed him in her heart and paid that comment no heed. As a member of society, she intended to have the minimum level of patience and common sense expected of an adult. But today, right at this very moment,
せ
up.
はい。
Huh?
うるせえって言ってんだよ。
I said shut up!
言ってて恥ずかしくないのかゲス野郎が。
Are you not ashamed of what you're saying, you shithead?
自分の能力棚に上げて喧嘩売るってんならいつでも勝ってやんぞあ。
If you're blind to your own weaknesses and looking to pick a fight, I'm ready to fight back at any moment. Well, get his ass.
ダメです、南さん。
Don't do this, Minai-san. After she closed the distance between them and spoke up with a totally different tone, Kojima couldn't help but fall silent. If Fujita hadn't grabbed her arm so quickly, she might have taken it a step further. There were rumors going around behind the scenes ever since she came to Kakichi Station, but since the rumors were completely ungrounded, Tomoe paid them no heed. However, if someone were to make flippant remarks right in front of her rather than acting like a considerate, sensible adult, what could you expect?
南次長、口を慎みたまえ。
Watch your tongue, Assistant Director Minai.
年上に対してその発言は聞き捨てならんぞ。
You mustn't speak that way to your elders.
じゃあ、今の小島補佐の発言は何だって言うんですか？
Then what does that say about Deputy Section Chief Kojima's remarks?
明らかに南さんへの侮辱です。訂正してください。
He clearly insulted Minai-san, so set things right.
そういう見方もあるということだ。
He's saying that point of view is valid.
まあそれにしても、君もとんだ猫かぶりだな。
Anyway, even you can't feign ignorance of that.
妹が妹なら姉も姉。素性と血は争えんということか。
Sisters will be sisters, after all. There's no disputing you have the same blood and lineage. That line breached the end of Tomoe's patience. She completely flew off the handle.
もう一度言ってみろ。
One more time. Try saying that one more time. Come on.
言っていいことの区別もつかねえのかこのクソじじい。
Don't you even know what is and isn't appropriate to say, you senile old man?
待ってください、南さん。
Hold on, Minai-san.
やめてください。頼みますから。
Stop this, I'm begging you.
話せ藤田。
Let me go, Fujita.
こいつは
That bastard. That bastard! Murder, 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 murder! Let her at him. She couldn't remember well what happened after that, but in the end, they were thrown out of the crime scene by nearby investigators. The one thing she didn't forget was the pain of Hayami hitting her and shouting, "Calm down." Eesh. So, a 1-week suspension?
とつくづくバカじゃないの。
Honestly, you're a damn idiot, you know that?
うっさい。
Oh, shut up. Tomoe vented her irritation at Madoka, who was sitting in bed, while she continued peeling the apple that she had brought for Madoka. Madoka couldn't help but sigh while gazing at the dexterity of her handiwork.
しかしまあ、よくも謹慎で済んだものよね。
But I'm shocked you got away with a temporary suspension.
大衆の前で目下とはいえ、年上の刑事をグーパンチで一撃なんかして、下手すりゃ定職ものよ。
A detective punching a superior officer right in view of the public. You could have been fired if that had gone south.
グーじゃないパーよ。
It was a slap, not a punch.
大して変わんないわよ。結局殴ってんだから。
That doesn't make a difference. It's assault either way.
警察は軍隊じゃないんだからね。分かってるのお姉ちゃん。
You're a police officer, not a soldier. You understand that, right, sis? When her sister so bluntly pointed that out, Tomoe was completely at a loss for words. Indeed, even in situations where the blood rushes to your head, resorting to violence is the lowest act a member of society can stoop to. But, secretly, Madoka was a little happy about it.
え、ちゃんと謝ったの？
So, did you apologize properly?
岡部課長に。
To Section Chief Okabe?
うん。
Yeah.
嫌味の一つでも言われるかと思ったけど、以後気をつけろって言われただけ。
Thought he was going to say something offensive, but he just said to be careful in the future.
なんか企んでるのかな。
I wonder if he's planning something.
単に怖かったんでしょ？
Maybe he's just afraid.
下手なこと言ってもう一度怒らせたら、今度こそバイオレンス劇場の始まりだって。
If he said something careless and upset you again, it might just start another act of violence theater.
失礼ね。
Excuse you?
そこまで理性飛んでないわよ。
I don't fly off the handle for no reason like that.
はい、説得力全くありませんので。
Okay, you're definitely not convincing me of that. Realizing there was nothing she could say to win this argument, Tomoe sullenly cut off her protest. Then, she sliced the peeled apple into pieces, cut out the core, neatly set them on a plate, and inserted toothpicks into each before slightly holding the plate out to Madoka.
あれ？食べさせてくれないの？
Huh? You're not going to feed them to me?
あんたの肩の両側にある2本のそれはなんだ？
You've got 2 arms, don't you?
へえ、私重病人だしさ。
Come on, I'm seriously ill.
そんな元気な重病人見たことも聞いたことも食べたこともないっての。
No seriously ill patient has ever looked, sounded, and eaten that energetically.
いらないんなら私が全部食べるわよ。
If you don't want them, I'll eat them all myself, okay?
どっちみち半分は食べるくせに。
Says the one who's gonna eat half either way. As she said that, Madoka took the small plate, grabbed one by the toothpick, and shoved it into her mouth. The strong, sweet, and sour, and the moderately soft texture of the fruit mixed together to be very delicious.
ジューシーな歯ごたえがとっても美味しい。
The juicy texture is really tasty!
これ、病院前のスーパーのやつ？
Did you get these from that guy at the market in front of the hospital?
駅前百貨店の地下売り場よ。
The shop, beneath the department store, right in front of the station.
高かったんだからよく味わって食べなさい。
They were really expensive, so you'd better savor them.
へいへい、オンに来ます。
Got it. I owe you one.
もう大丈夫なの？
Are you alright now?
ごめんね。
Yeah, sorry.
最近はガスコンロの火も平気だったからちょっと油断しちゃった。
I'm fine around the fire from the gas stove these days, so I lowered my guard a little.
こんなに来たの久々だし、自分でもびっくりした。
It's been a long time since I've gotten this way, so even I was surprised. Tomoe picked up another apple and cut it into 8 half-moon-shaped pieces. This one was unpeeled and intended to share with Madoka.
お姉ちゃんにはずっと迷惑かけっぱなしだね。
Sis, I've always been making trouble for you.
自分でも早く治そうとは思ってるんだけどさ。
Even I think I need to get better soon.
それはいい子なし。
There's no need to say that.
焦ってもプラスには働かないってお医者さんも言ってたでしょ。
The doctor said even if you recover quickly, you shouldn't go back to work just yet.
それに私はそのことで迷惑だなんて一度も思ったことないわよ。
Besides, I've never even once thought you were a burden.
けどさ、このままじゃやっぱり周りの人にも嫌な思いさせちゃうし。
Still, I'm hurting the people around me like this.
お姉ちゃんは事情分かってくれるから安心だけどさ。
Sis, you know about the circumstances, so you're okay.
カオルさんはどうなんだろ
But what about Kaoru-san?
どうなんだろうって話してないの？
What about him? Have you not talked to him?
う。折を見て話すつもりだったんだけど、今日までつい。
I've been planning to talk to him about it, but even today I still haven't gotten around to it.
はあ、まったく。
Unbelievable. This time, it was Tomoe's turn to heave a sigh. Her tendency to act immediately without thinking made things difficult at times like this. And Tomoe couldn't act like it wasn't her issue either.
前に付き合ってた彼氏とはこれが全ての原因ってわけじゃないけど
I'm not saying this is all because of some boyfriend I was dating before, but
やっぱりうまくいかなかったんだよね
in the end, things didn't go well.
見慣れない人にはちょっと引いちゃう感じらしくてさ
People not used to it tend to be turned off by it.
飲食店のバイトも厨房の火のせいであんまり長く続かなかった
My part-time job at the restaurant didn't last long, thanks to a fire in the kitchen.
ライターとかならなんとか平気なんだけどね
I'm okay around lighters, though.
窓か。
Madoka. She understood now. The reason she insisted on working at that cabaret club. If she couldn't cheer herself up with alcohol, she wouldn't have been able to work.
ここに入院したのだって
Damn.
表向きは頭打ったってことにしてるし
When I was admitted to this hospital, the official record said I took a blow to the head.
今更言ったらなんて反応するかな
If I told him now, how would he react?
ひどいことを言う人じゃないことは分かってるんだけど
I know he's not the kind of person to say cruel things, but still. Seeing the deeply troubled look on Madoka's face made Tomoe's chest ache. Even after all this, her little sister was earnestly thinking about Yamaoki. She still didn't know what Yamaoki's intentions were, but even so.
大丈夫よ。
It's alright.
あの人ならちゃんと受け止めてくれるって。
That man will be able to properly accept it.
そうかな
You think so?
そうよ。
I do. She put some more apples she finished coring on the small plate and bit into one while smiling to try to encourage her sister.
他人のそういうところを面倒に思う人だったら、これまでだって父さんのことで協力してくれたりしないって。
If he wasn't the kind of person who cared about other people's problems, he never would have been able to get along with Dad as much as he did.
だからちゃんと相談してこれからのことを話し合いなさい。
So please talk to him properly in the future.
私が健在なら全然 OK だけど、いつまでもそうとは限らないでしょ。
You'll be fine as long as I'm in good health, but that's not always going to be the case, you know?
なんだそりゃ
What is this?
不吉なこと言わないでよ
Don't say something so ominous.
でもひょっとしたら万が一、いや億が一にもあの野郎と結婚生活でも送ることを考えたら、さっさとバラした方が気が楽よ。
But in the 1 in 10,000, no, 1 in 100 million chance that does happen, I think you'd have an easier time enduring it if you were married to that man.
あんただってそれくらいのことは分かってんでしょ。
You understand that much, right? Yeah. Madoka nodded her head. She understood all that, but she just wanted to hear her sister say it. Because it felt like she was just making excuses.
あーなんか話したらすっきりしちゃった
Talking about this has made me feel better.
やっぱ持つべきものは物分かりのいいお姉様だね
This is what compassionate and understanding elder sisters are for.
調子のいいこと言ってんじゃない。
Don't get full of yourself.
それに交際は認めても結婚なんてよっぽど頑張らないとうなずいてなんかやんないからね。
Plus, even if I accept your marriage, you won't get my approval unless you give it your all.
うわまだ言ってますよこの人は
Whoa, you're still saying. Just then. They heard the clatter of the knob turning, and then a man dressed in a hospital gown emerged. His face didn't look familiar, and more importantly, there was no reason for another hospital patient to enter Madoka's private room. So, what was the deal with this guy?
誰？
Uh-oh. Who are you?
あ、いや、その
Huh? Oh,
何の用なの？
do you need something? Tomoe quickly rose to her feet and stood in front of Madoka to cover her, reaching her hand into her jacket, then grimaced. Since she was on suspension, she wasn't carrying her usual baton. Still, at this distance, with one adversary, she could handle the situation if she closed the gap.
あ、
Oh, He suddenly donned a confused and upset expression when faced with that forceful question. Then, as if he had realized something, he took a step out of the room and took a look at the room tag.
すみません、間違えました。
I'm sorry, I was mistaken.
Eh?
Huh? As soon as he tossed those words out, his face turned red, and he slammed the door. Then, footsteps could be heard running down the hallway.
何 あれ。
What was that?
ああ、多分ただの部屋間違いでしょ。
He was probably just mistaken about which room this is.
カオルさんも一度ミスりかけたし。
Kara-san made the same mistake once before. Huh? Madoka lightly giggled while staring at her sister's back. Tomoe was still standing in front of her trying to protect her. Then, Madoka poked her. According to Madoka, all the hospital rooms in this building, from the 3rd to 8th floor, had the exact same layout. And not only that, but there wasn't much variety in the furniture in the rooms or the view out the windows, so if you weren't used to it, you could easily mistake which floor you're on after exiting the elevator. Apparently, Yamaoki came to visit earlier and mistakenly barged into another room on a lower floor without even knocking.
ああ、そういえば。
Now that you mention it, yeah. Indeed, after bringing it up, Tomoe also noticed the same thing earlier when she went to the nurse's station to borrow a fruit knife. Unfortunately, all of them were loaned out, but the nurse said she could get another if she tried going 2 floors downstairs. But Tomoe did momentarily worry she was on the wrong floor since it had the exact same layout. Well, that seemed to be a relatively normal situation for general hospitals with a large number of patient rooms, but Tomoe wished they'd give a little more consideration for the people who actually had to use them.
それにしても入院患者が迷うってのはよっぽどなのね。
Anyway, I'm sure a lot of hospital patients get lost.
こんなことなら部屋に鍵でもないと不安よ。
In which case, bothers me that these rooms don't have locks.
大丈夫だって。
It's alright.
さっきの患者さん、なんか眠たそうだったから、うっかりしてただけだよ。
That patient earlier just made a careless mistake because he was tired.
お姉ちゃん？
Sis? Suddenly, Tomoe completely froze in place with her hand still hovering in the air reaching for the last apple piece. And the next moment, she rose to her feet as though she had realized something, then began heading out of the hospital room without even noticing that the chair had fallen down behind her.
ちょっとどうしたの？
Oh, wait, what's wrong?
お姉ちゃんってば。
Sis!
あ、すみません。
Excuse me.
柿内署の南井と申しますが、一課長の本庄さんをお願いします。
My name is Manai from Kakuichi Station. I'd like to speak with the 1st Division Section Chief, Hanjo-san. Oh, that's quick. The timetable listing her destination pattered as she put it away. And at last, the flight she planned to board displayed a now commencing boarding status.
さて。
Now then. After drinking the rest of the wine in her paper cup, she slowly stood up and grabbed the bag from the seat next to her. She had already checked her suitcase and larger luggage, so her personal belongings were relatively light. She faintly sneered at the crowd of passengers lined up at the boarding gate. Their seats were the poor, cramped economy seats. The services and accommodations were completely different from the first-class seat she would be sitting in. Such a pity, sitting with your shoulders shrunk together and having to endure it for a multiple hour-long flight. She muttered that in her head while throwing the paper cup into a nearby trash can, then turned to face the completely empty first-class gate. Right then.
Oh! Macauへバカンスですか?
Oh, vacationing in Macau, eh?
いいっすな!
Sounds lovely! Huh? Looking back toward the voice that suddenly called out to her from behind, she found an elderly man in a thick coat approaching her with a pleasant smile on his face. At a quick glance, he was styled like a worn-down business manager. However, she understood well that his occupation was since they had met once before.
あなた。
You?
お久しぶりです。
Long time no see.
茨城県警捜査一課の本庄です。
It's Hanjo from the 1st Investigation Division of the Ibaraki Prefectural Police Department. The man who addressed himself as Hanjo pulled a black notebook out of his jacket pocket and held it up to her. The moment she saw it, a chill ran through Yoko Hiranuma's body. I tried. As every ounce of blood froze over.
搭乗手続きまだ混んでるみてえだべ。
The check-in area still looks pretty crowded.
それまでちっとお話聞いてもらえませんか?
Do you mind having a small chat until it clears up?
なんでしょうか。
About what?
いやー、大したことじゃねえんだべ。
Well, it's nothing major.
あなたにずっと確かめておきたかったことがあったんですが、今まで忘れててや。
There was something that's been on my mind for a long time, but I forgot about it until right this moment.
何をですか？
And what would that be?
いや、前にお伺いした話の繰り返しです。
This may be a repeat of our earlier conversation.
あなた沢村浩平君の発見の時最初に警察に連絡してそれから担当医の先生を呼び出したでしたっけ
When Kohei Sawamura-kun was discovered, you first contacted the police and the doctor in charge. Isn't that right?
ええ、そうですが。
Yes, that's right.
間違いなくて
You're not mistaken about that?
だからそうです。
As I said, that's right. There was a hint of irritation in Hiranuma's voice as she repeated that response. What on earth was this man hoping to hear?
大体それが何か？
And what of it, anyway?
いやねなんだかおかしくねえっすか
Well, isn't something odd?
なんで8階から見下ろしただけで沢村君が転落したって分かったんです
How did you know Sawamura-kun had fallen to his death if all you did was look down from the 8th floor?
は？
Huh?
そんなの当然じゃないですか。
Isn't that perfectly natural?
窓が開いててさっきまで病室にいた人が外の地面に横たわっていたら普通そう考えるのが自然でしょ。
The window was open and the person who was in the hospital room earlier was laying on the ground outside. Isn't it normal to think so?
ねえ確かにその通
Yes, exactly.
りでもねちょっと腑に落ちないんですよ
But there's something that doesn't quite make sense.
だったらなんで彼を助けることを第一に考えなかったのかってね
If that was the case, why wasn't your first thought to consider helping him?
え？
Huh? The smile on Hunter's face vanished as he stared at Hiranuma with a piercing glare. That was when she noticed other men dressed in suits like detectives were standing to block the exits. Uh-oh.
8階からの転落
A fall from the 8th floor?
常識で考えれば即死してもおかしくねえ高さだ
If you think about it logically, it's high enough to cause instant death.
ですがね普通の医療現場の人ならたとえ 1% でも助かる可能性に欠けるはずです
But for professionals in the medical field, normally they'd rush to save someone even if there was only a 1% chance of success.
だとしたら最初に連絡を取るのは救急で
In which case, shouldn't your first step have been to call emergency services?
警察に連絡するのは死亡が確認されてから
And call the police only after you confirmed he was dead?
担当医なんて一番後です
And the doctor in charge would be the last person to contact.
違いますか
Or am I mistaken?
それはあの時は私も動転していて。
That's because I was frightened and shaken up at the time.
それから沢村君の部屋が密室で鍵がかかってたって話ですが
And then there's the story that Sawamura-kun's room was a closed room since the door was locked.
確かにあなたの言う通り防犯カメラには最後にあなたが彼の部屋を訪れてからずっと誰も彼の部屋さ入ってなかった
Indeed, cameras showed that nobody entered his room after you, just as you said.
だから彼が鍵をかけて部屋から誤って落っこちたが自殺したって話になってって
So, he locked the door before accidentally falling from the room, but then you said he committed suicide.
しかしねあそこの鍵はかけてから閉めるようになってます
He's doing his best, like, Columbo impression. But the door could have been locked after it was
っ
closed.
てことは密室殺人の条件は崩れるんです
In which case, the condition for the closed room falls apart.
部屋を出てった犯人が鍵を閉めることができるってことですから
It's possible that the perpetrator locked the door after leaving the room using the key.
つまり逆に言えばこうです
Or to put it another way,
誰かに自殺を装って殺されたのだとしたら
if someone wanted to murder him and disguise it as a suicide,
一番怪しいのは最後に彼と会った
the most
あなた
the most suspicious individual is the last person to meet him. You.
何ですかそれは。
What is this? Hiranuma shouted in rage and dropped her carry-on bag to the floor. Clasp came undone and the bag split open, spilling some cosmetics and small articles to the floor.
それじゃ私が彼を窓から突き落としたとでも言うんですか。
Then, you're suggesting I threw him out the window?
無茶を言わないでください。彼と私じゃ体格差がまるで違うんですよ。
Don't be absurd. You're aware of the difference between our body types, right?
どうやって自分以上の背格好の人を窓まで連れて雨津さえ落とすことができるって言うんですか。
How can you suggest that I brought someone taller than myself to that window, much less threw him out of it?
逆に抵抗されて私が落とされるだけです。
It would be the other way around. He'd fight back. I'd be the one thrown out.
まあ普通に考えればそうですべ。
Well, normally you'd think so.
ただこうも考えられなかっぺ。
But what if you think about it like this?
彼が自ら窓に近づいて窓の縁のところに上がったと。
He approached the window on his own and climbed to the ledge.
そうすればあなたは軽く突き飛ばすだけで彼は転落する。
If that were the case, you'd be able to throw him off with just a light push.
それこそ意味がわかりません。
I don't understand the meaning of that.
なぜ彼がそんな危険な真似を自分からするんですか？
Why would he put himself in such a dangerous situation?
そりゃ簡単です。
That's simple.
危険だと思わなかったからだべ。
It's because he didn't think it was dangerous. Hiranuma caught her breath. He knew. This man knew all her machinations.
沢村君は発見前検温を済ませて眠ってたって言ってましたっけ。
You said that before Sawamura-kun was discovered, he had his temperature taken and then went to sleep.
そんで第一発見者の尾崎渚さんが見舞いさ来るまでの間に警報器の誤作動があった。
Then, there was a malfunction with the alarm just before the first to discover the body. Nagisa Osaki came to visit him.
すぐに看護師さんたちが各部屋に回って患者さんたちに説明していたそうですが、
Shortly thereafter, the nurses visited every patient's room to explain the situation.
あなたは沢村君には違うこと言った。
But you told Sawamura-kun something else.
例えば火事を逃げなさいと。
Something like, there's a fire. Get out of here.
そしてあなたは窓の方を指さす。
And then, you pointed toward the window.
それを聞いた沢村君は寝起きで意識が混濁していたために自分の部屋が1階だと勘違いした。
When Sawamura-kun heard that, he was confused from just waking up and thought he was still in his room on the first floor.
もともと彼の部屋は8階に移る1週間前までは1階でしたからね。
His room was originally on the first floor, and he had only moved to the 8th floor a week before.
しかも以前に窓から逃げたことがあるためさ、外さ出るさは廊下よりも窓の方が早いと思い込んだ。
And not only that, but his old room was physically located somewhere that escaping through the window would be faster than running down the hallway.
そんであっぱとっぱしながら窓に近づいて縁に足をかけたところでようやくここが8階であったことに気づく。
So, as he hastily approached the window and climbed up to the ledge, he was surprised to notice he was actually on the 8th floor.
そんで落っこちめえと両手でサッシを掴んだが、その後ろからあなたが突き飛ばし、支えきれずさそのまま落下した。
When he noticed he was about to fall, he grabbed the window frame with both hands, but when you approached him from behind and pushed, he didn't have the means to support himself, so he fell.
証拠はあるのですか？
Is there any evidence of this?
これわかりますか？
Here, do you know what these are?
サッシについた沢村君の爪の跡です。
They're markings from Sawamura-kun's fingernails on the window frame.
普通高層階から飛び降りようと考えるときは左右か下のみに指紋と爪痕がつくもの。
Normally, when someone is considering jumping from a high place, the fingerprints and nails marks appear just on the bottom, rather than the left and right sides.
ところが彼の場合、右と下に爪痕がある。
But in this case, there were nail markings on the right side and the bottom.
しかも右には抵抗した際に爪を剥がしたのが血痕も発見された。
Moreover, he clenched so strongly on the right side that it peeled his nails off, leaving bloodstains behind.
そんなので探偵なんて。
You can't tell that for sure.
あとね、彼の爪の間に彼以外の血液型の皮膚片がありましてね。
Also, found traces of skin of a different blood type beneath his nails.
その血液型は RH- の A 型。
The blood type was A negative.
そしてあなたも確か。
And sure enough, that's your type too.
その手袋を取ってもらえませんか？
Would you mind taking off those gloves?
あなたの手のどちら側に沢村君と争った時にできた傷跡があるはずです。
One of your hands should have a scar from the fight with Sawamura-kun. Sawamura-kun.
県警までご同行願います。
Please come with me to Prefectural Police Headquarters. Hiranuma hung her head, then fell to her knees. After seeing that, Hanjo silently nodded to the detectives behind her. On that signal, they moved around to both sides of her. However, Oh, what? Okay. I'm gonna sneeze. Excuse me. Suddenly, Hiranuma sneered and began laughing in a low, creepy voice. Then, she looked up with her eyes open wide while still cackling. That's cartoonish sounding. Yep.
こいつ
What is this?
先本田
Seki, Honda!
被疑者確保取り押さえ
Restrain the suspect!
ろ両手を自由にさせるな
Don't let either of her hands free! I did not think we were going this direction. Hiranuma shook her hair about and cried out in a strange voice while picking up the fruit knife she had that had fallen out of her carry-on bag. Then she swung it in all directions in an effort to intimidate the detectives. Oh shit, she's got a fruit knife! She's so dangerous! And then, noticing the gap between the detectives she managed to open with her blade, she ran toward the back window in an effort to escape. Then... She plunged the knife into her own throat and stabbed it in over and over again. The dull gurgling sound of an overflowing viscous liquid rang out, while a stream of bright red blood fell down to the floor. Out of nowhere, a grief-stricken scream came out, strong enough to tear through silk. The surrounding detectives all froze in horror. Even Hanjo felt the urge to vomit at the miserable sight. What?
本田救急隊に連絡
Honda, call the first aid squad!
蘇生器具とレスキューキット持ってこさせろ
Tell them to bring resuscitation tools and a rescue kit. That's not gonna work.
自殺？
Suicide?
それで被疑者はどうなりました？
So what became of the suspect?
申し訳ねえ
Oh, I'm sorry.
応急で救命措置を施して病院へ運び込んだがダメだった
Emergency first aid was administered and she was transported to a hospital, but it was all for nothing. Tomoe was so shocked she was at a loss for words after hearing that from Hanjo over the phone. Losing control and turning to suicide wasn't out of the question, naturally. Hanjo and the others probably felt the same way. But the men froze when they witnessed Hiranuma's strange, or rather completely baffling transformation. Shrieking in a weird voice and going mad with laughter, before finally piercing her throat with a knife and dying. Nobody in decent mental health would ever turn to that means, even if they intended self-harm. Was it a spasm induced by some illness? Or was she at her wit's end after being cornered and acting in a panic? Tomoe couldn't say.
平沼陽子が何かの薬物を服用していたという話はあったのですか？
Have you heard if Yuko Hiranuma was taking any sort of drugs?
いや少なくとも現時点ではね
No, at least not at the moment.
勤務態度も普通で同僚や知人オラン近隣の住人の誰に聞いても信じられない一点張りだ
Her colleagues, acquaintances, and neighbors said she had a normal working attitude. When asked about it, all they could say was, I can't believe it.
意図的にかばってるようには見えねえな
And it didn't seem like they were covering for her.
なのになんでそんな最後
But why turn to that in the end?
わからん
I don't know.
いや本当にわかんねえんだ
Honestly, I have no idea.
平沼陽子がなぜ沢村浩平を殺したって動機もわかんねえ
I don't understand Yuko Hiranuma's motive for killing Kohei Sawamura either.
それに巴ちゃんが言っていた尾崎渚の殺人事件に彼女が関与していたが全部闇ん中だ
And if she was somehow involved with the Nagisa Saki murder case you were investigating, now everything is in the dark.
家宅捜索を行ってもそれらしき証拠物件は何にもなかった
Even after searching her house, we didn't find any evidence.
完全に八方塞がりだべ
We're completely cut off in all directions.
本庄さん
Hanjo-san. It was a rare occasion for Hanjo to speak as though he had given up. He always tried to search for a breakthrough that could lead to a new theory. In other words, this was the kind of incident where the culprit could never be found.
私の方でもいくつか探ってみます。
I'll do what I can on my end to keep searching.
また何かありましたら連絡をいただけますか？
Can you contact me if anything else turns up?
友ちゃん
Tomoe-chan.
はい。
Yes?
これはオーラの勘だが
This is just a hunch, but
この事件の裏お前さんが思う以上に深いぞ
the truth behind this incident runs deeper than you think.
分かってます。
I understand that.
安易に言うな
Don't say that so casually.
それが分かってねえって言うんだ
That's the same as saying you don't understand at all. Hanjo said that in response to Tomoe's almost reflexive answer.
男子学生が殺されその犯人が自殺
A male student was murdered and the culprit committed suicide.
それだけならただの凶楽殺人か猟奇殺人だ
If that was all there was to it, it could simply be a case of a murder committed for personal enjoyment or to sate curiosity.
だけど今までそんな思考も異常も見られなかった人間が突然表現して人を襲いそんで自分もぶっ壊す
But a person who exhibited no such abnormalities until now suddenly changed and attacked another person than herself.
そっただ事件今まで存在していたが
Has there ever been an accident like this before?
いえ、欧米の事件記録にもそんな事例はありません。
No, there are no such cases like this, even among Western case records. Criminals who kill to sate curiosity always have some sort of preference or an established environment that led them to that thought. There's no chance of a person turning to aberrant behavior without that.
気ぃつけろよトモエちゃん
Be careful, Tomoe-chan.
これはお前さん一人が片手までなんとかなるような代物じゃねえ
This isn't the kind of thing you should handle on your own in your spare time.
その辺をよく考えてな
Always be cognizant of your surroundings.
はい、
Right.
肝に銘じます。
Keep that in the back of my mind. Always. Then, Tomoe hung up the phone.
一人で片手までは
Shouldn't handle on my own. Huh? That was certainly true. But two children that she knew had already fallen victim. Could she dismiss this case, the case as being blocked on all sides, just as he said?
そうだ。
That's right. There was another incident where a person not showing any abnormalities suddenly changed and attacked a person, even though she had convinced herself there was no such thing just a moment ago. But isn't the Rina Ryugu case a perfect example of that?
だとしたら、やっぱりあの子は。
If that's the case, then that girl... There was a possibility that Rina Ryugu had to have some connection to the series of incidents. In which case, if she investigated the girl's background a little more thoroughly, surely... Just then, the phone directly in front of her began to ring. Though she was confused for a moment by the sudden interruption, Tomoe quickly switched back to normal and picked up the receiver.
はい、もしもし。
Yes? Hello?
南井次長、山沖所長がお呼びです。
Assistant Director Minai, Chief Yamaoki is calling for you.
所長室へお越しください。
Please come to the Chief's office.
所長が？
The Chief? Having received a call from the General Affairs Office, likely needing her to act as Madoka's representative in her absence, Tomoe got up and rose to her feet. Oh no, she's gonna get in trouble. If she presses further into this thing, she's gonna die again. We're gonna have to watch her die again, maybe. Please, no. Tomoe, no. Oh, a drink at your deathbed tip. Get me in there.
それにしてもお見事な手際でしたね。
Anyway, that was a beautiful performance.
ターゲットは割と体格のいい少年でしたから、証拠も残さずどのようにして仕留めるのかと思っておりましたが、まさか自分から窓を乗り越えさせるとは。
The target was a relatively well-built boy, so I wasn't sure how you'd be able to take him out without leaving behind any evidence. I wouldn't have expected you to throw him out the window.
さすがは我々が見込んだだけのことはある。
Excellent work, as we expected of you.
あまりおだてないでください。
Please don't flatter me.
入院患者の世話を長らく務めていたおかげで、ああいった場合の行動心理が少しは理解できるようになっただけですよ。
Thanks to all the time I've spent taking care of hospital patients, I'm able to understand just a little of their behavioral psychology. She knew it was flattery, but it felt good regardless. After all, even she didn't expect her trick to work out so well without any help.
窓の施錠については管理責任を問われましたが、それも厳重注意程度で済みました。
I had to take responsibility for the window being left unlocked, but even that only amounted to a stern reprimanding.
警察もその程度で業務上過失致死罪を突きつけてくるはずはありませんしね。
The police shouldn't press charges for a death caused by workplace negligence.
その上で管理不行き届きの責任を取って辞職とあっても誰も疑う人はいませんわ。
And on top of that, even if management makes me take responsibility and fires me, nobody suspects a thing.
全くです。
Indeed.
その完全犯罪の見返りはお約束通り相応のもので答えさせていただきますよ。
As promised, you'll receive a suitable reward for executing this crime so perfectly.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much.
着いた先で通帳を開いてみるのが楽しみですわ。
I look forward to opening the bank book after I arrive. For that amount of money, she had no regrets about throwing away a job she worked at for so many years, being obligated to deal with hospital patients day and night without rest, needing to handle everything perfectly naturally. If there were any problems, the families would file complaints immediately, and in the worst cases, even leading to lawsuits. Those families would shove the duties and care they themselves should have provided on her, and would take advantage of their position as paying customers to put unreasonable pressure on her. Plus, it continued getting worse year after year, slowly tearing her pride and sense of purpose as a nurse to pieces. Damn. On top of that, the number of active nurses had decreased in recent years due to cost-cutting measures. Instead of getting a weekly day off, she'd work overtime every single week. And furthermore, even though she worked so hard and contributed so much, Medical Association policy limited salary reviews. Since it arrived at a time when she was already at a limit of her patience, there was no way she could resist biting at this delicious proposition. After this, she was planning to lay low in a foreign country until things cooled down, and then it would be nice to get re-employed at another hospital.
でも死んだあの子の彼女には気の毒なことをしました。
But I do feel sorry for the dead boy's girlfriend.
遠路はるばる来たというのに第一発見者にさせてしまいましたからね。
Even though she came from so far to see him, I made her the first to discover the body.
別の日にしてもよかったのですが。
If only it had happened on another day.
仕方ありません。
There was no other way.
患者はかなり正常な思考を取り戻して、しかも例の少女からいろいろと話を聞いていたようですからね。
The patient was getting back to a normal way of thinking, and he heard all those stories from the girl in that other incident.
情報の漏洩を防ぐためにも必要な措置でした。
This was a necessary measure to prevent information from leaking.
もっとも、その前日に行う予定だった避難訓練が延期になっていなければ、ここまで回りくどいことをする必要はなかったかもしれませんが。
Of course, if the fire drill scheduled for the day before hadn't been postponed, it may not have been necessary to resort to such roundabout means.
そうですね。
Indeed. The malfunction of the fire alarm had been a last resort she thought up on the spot. She was worried the plan wouldn't work out without collaborators familiar with the mechanism, but those agents had been pros. It was true that this man smiling in front of her was full of mysteries and beyond fishy. But even so, she was promised big money and plane tickets to get out of here, so she figured she could trust him enough.
とりあえず、祝杯というのも不謹慎ではありますが、どうです？
For now, what do you say to a celebratory toast? Though it may be in poor taste to call it that.
あいにく紙コップしかありませんが、ワインはなかなかの年代物です。
Unfortunately, I only have paper cups, but this is well-aged wine.
あら、これはボルドーの。
So this was literally right before what we'd seen. Oh my, is that Bordeaux?
初めて見ましたわ。いい匂い。
It's my first time actually seeing it. It smells lovely.
落ち着き先では、このようなワインは山ほどご用意しておりますから。
There are mountains of wine like this where you're going.
まずは飲み始めということで。
But first, let's have a drink.
ええ、いただきますわ。
Yes, thank you for the wine. Then, they each held a paper cup filled to the brim in hand and lightly clapped them together. Unfortunately, it lacked the clinking sound of glass, but she thought it would be nice to savor it slowly at a restaurant in her destination. And then, after drinking the contents, her contact stood up and said he needed to make a phone call before departure.
はい。今、例のものを飲ませました。
Yes, I made her drink the sample just now. Damn. Oh, shit. Yeah, that... Okay, I didn't even piece it... I probably should have pieced it together sooner than what it is just right now. But he had her plan to have her offed right there anyway. Even if she wasn't arrested. I made her drink the sample just now.
ええ。指紋は残しておりませんよ。
Yes, I didn't leave any fingerprints behind. He held the receiver to his ear while slowly peeling the resin film from his fingertips. Of course, he wasn't foolish enough to throw them in the trash, so he stuffed them into his waist pocket.
そうですね。
That's right.
県警の捜査一課が感づいたようですから、おそらく飛行機に乗り込む前になるかと。
Seems like the first investigation division at Prefectural HQ is onto something, so they may arrive before she boards the plane.
いずれにしても大騒ぎになりますよ。
Either way, I'm sure it'll be a huge commotion.
激務のストレスの積み重ねで狂気を起こし、憂さ晴らしに患者を殺害。
Being fed up with the piling stress of being overworked, then killing a patient to take her mind off it.
そして警察に追い詰められた末にその枠乱を爆発させて自殺。
And then, being cornered by the police, exploding in a panic before committing suicide.
なかなか説得力のあるシナリオだと思いませんか？
Doesn't that sound like a rather convincing scenario?
そんな言われ方は心外ですね。
I'm hurt you'd say that to me.
最後にとびっきりいいワインを飲ませてやったんですよ。
And in the end, I let her drink some fine wine.
死での旅には過ぎた代物だと思いますけどね。
I think that's a suitable parting gift on the journey to death.
ま、せめてもの慈悲ってことで。
Well, at the very least, it's an act of pity.
ああ、あと例の架空口座の通帳は回収済みです。
That's right. I've already recovered the bank book for the fictitious account.
もっと派手に使いまくると思っていたんですけどね。引き出していたのはほんの少しだけでした。
Thought it'd get more significant use, but only a few withdrawals were made.
いやいや、金の使い方のわからない貧乏人は悲しいですね。
My, how sad is it that poor people don't understand how to use money?
見たこともない大金にビビっちゃったんでしょうか。
She probably got scared about having more money than she'd ever seen before.
それでは。
Alright then.
さて、そろそろかな。
Anyway, it's about time. Just then, a large crowd of policemen ran down the walkway next to the payphone, and beyond that flow, a loud commotion could be heard.
さすがだな。時間ぴったり。
Perfect timing. Right on cue.
じゃ、平沼陽子さん、良い旅を。
Alright, Yuko Hiranuma-san, have a nice trip. How evil. But interesting. I never would have guessed random nurse from the very beginning of this was involved in it into this degree. And we keep going.
失礼します。
Excuse me?
お呼びでしょうか。
You called for me?
うん。
Yeah.
まあ、かけたまえ。
Here, have a seat.
はい。
Okay. On that prompting, Tomoe took a seat on the sofa. The familiar soft touch and unique smell of leather made it comfortable to sit on.
そういえば、このソファーに座ったことって今までなかったな。
Come to think of it, I've never actually sat in the sofa before. That was largely because she didn't want to spend much time in the chief's office. She always spoke with Yamaoki and received her orders while standing. Yamaoki turned his back to Tomoe and stared out the window while smoking a cigarette. Something felt slightly out of place. All this time, Tomoe never knew him to smoke.
待たせたな。
Sorry to keep you waiting.
さて、本題に入るか。
Now, on to the main subject. Yamaoki grabbed a piece of paper from his desk and sat it down in front of Tomoe. It was a single-page letter. The name Tomoe Minai was written on it, and...
何ですかこれは。
What is this? Tomoe suddenly stood up with the letter in hand. Her eyes were open wide as she reviewed the contents over and over again. She couldn't immediately comprehend the inorganic arrangement of letters on the page. Or rather, she didn't want to. Rage and bewilderment ran rampant inside her head, and a sense of vertigo caused her vision to momentarily cloud over. If it would be deemed acceptable, she wanted to tear the letter to pieces right here. It took a great deal of effort to resist the intense impulse.
内容の通りだ。
According to the contents,
警察庁の広報室からの依頼で、君を報道対応の特務係長として招聘したいと。
the National Police Agency's Public Relations Office has requested that you be assigned to serve as a specially appointed chief of media correspondence.
つまりそういうことだ。
In brief, that's what it says. Yeesh. Thanks to recent developments in the mass media, information on criminal cases is now immediately available to the public. As a result, there's a potential risk of damaging the reputation of the victims, perpetrators, and any other related parties. But if the media isn't provided any official information, then every organization could arbitrarily release their own articles based on speculation and incomplete information, which may lead to misunderstandings and false information. As such, there's an urgent need for the National Police Agency to set up a specialized organization to regulate the information disseminated to the media. However...
待ってください。
hold on!
自分はこの書き写所に来てまだ2ヶ月です。
It's only been 2 months since I arrived at Kakuichi Station.
このような急すぎる人事異動は非常識ではありませんか？
Isn't it unreasonable for personnel changes to happen so rapidly?
研修出向の期間に最長期限はあっても最短はない。
Although there is a maximum duration for the training period, there's no designated minimum.
出向先の責任長が研修目標を達成したと判断すれば、その時点で終了だ。
The training period can end as soon as the acting head at their temporary location determines that the trainee has accomplished their training goals. In fact, even though she was only there for 2 months, Tomoe had achieved far more than Yamaoki and the others expected. In conventional investigation, the detectives' primary activity is utilizing their intuition and experience. As a result, differences in investigators' abilities can lead to multiple oversights and duplication of information. Upper management and on-site investigators were interested in improving that inefficiency. Under those circumstances, there's no exaggeration at all to say that the profiling analysis techniques that Tomoe pioneered gave investigators relevant guidelines and valuable clues to solve those problems. That development was highly praised within the National Police Agency, and further research and testing will be conducted from now on, leading to potential full-scale adoption down the road.
この短期間でこれだけの成果を上げるとは私も予想していなかった。
I never expected you to achieve so much in such a short period of time.
君はこの功績を十分に誇ってもいいのだよ。
You should be proud of your accomplishments.
お世辞はやめてください。
Enough with the flattery.
そもそも報道対応といったものは刑事の自分ではなく警察官僚の方々が職務に当たるのが通例ではありませんか？
Besides, shouldn't police bureaucrats handle correspondence with the media rather than the detectives themselves?
自分とは畑違いです。
That's outside my line of work.
デスクワーク専門の練習では捜査線上で開示してもいい情報の取捨選択が判断できないということだろう。
It may be impossible for desk workers to properly determine the subset of investigation information fit for disclosure.
まして酷かもしれんが、君はかつて被害者側に立ったことがあり、風評による二次被害を予防するには何が必要か、彼らの立場で考えることができると思う。
Not to mention, considering you've experienced this from the victim's point of view, you of all people should be able to understand their perspectives and know what's needed to prevent rumors from causing any secondary damage to their reputations.
君はその2つの条件を満たしている最適な人材だというのが上層部の判断だ。
Upper management has decided that you're the best possible candidate to meet both of those qualifications.
それは
Well,
ですが私は
that's true, but I...
君の意思はこの際考慮には含まれない。
Your opinion is not part of the debate here.
重ねて言うがこれは命令だ。
I'll say it again. This is an order.
君も公僕の人間ならば上からの命令には従いたまえ。
If you're a public servant, it's your responsibility to follow orders from above. That sound effect kills me every time. Tomoe was still upset that she didn't have a chance to argue her side of the story, but she understood that fact and kept quiet. All civil servants, regardless of organization, had no right to defy a direct order for personal reasons.
だけど
But still, there were still a large number of unresolved cases under investigation. Passing that on to the other detectives at the station would cause unnecessary hardship for them. Not to mention, she still hadn't grasped the truth behind the Nagisa Ozaki case. Even if she wholeheartedly wanted to pursue the culprit, she'd never be able to solve anything if she wasn't working as a detective, actively investigating the case. The girl who said Tomoe was kind-hearted and thanked her for all her help. When they last met, the girl was trying her hardest to believe she could reconcile with her old friend, but it was impossible for her to set things right, since her untimely death took her before she could accomplish anything. Plus, Tomoe had already identified a clearly fishy suspect that she was hoping to investigate. And yet...
お願いします。お願いします、所長。
Please, Chief. So, even though it was nearly impossible to overturn a decision like this, if there was any hope of doing so, Tomoe was willing to bet on it.
もう少しだけ。あと3ヶ月。いえ、1ヶ月でも結構です。
Just give me a little longer. 3 months, even 1 month would be enough.
私に時間をいただけませんか？
Can you give me more time?
このままじゃ終われない。終わりたくない。
It can't end this way. I don't want it to end like this.
まだ私にはやりたいこと、やらなきゃいけないことがあるんです。
There's still something I want to do. Something I have to do.
例の大巻の事件のことは藤田君から聞いている。
Fujita-kun told me about the incident in Umineko.
だから君の気持ちは分かっているつもりだ。
So, I understand how you feel.
だったらせめて。
Then at least...
ではその1ヶ月で何かがつかめるのかね？
Do you think you can accomplish something in a month?
その根拠は？
What is your basis for that?
その自信は？
How are you so confident?
うぬぼれたことを言うな、南井君。
Don't say something so presumptuous, Minai-kun.
君一人であがいて立ち回ったとしても結局何も得られないどころか無理を重ねることで君自身が壊れることもあり得る。
Even if you struggle as hard as you can on your own, you may not accomplish anything, and you might even break yourself in the process.
君はそれで一生懸命やったと自己満足できるかもしれんがね。結果が出なければやらないのと同じだ。
Maybe you'll be able to give yourself a pat on the back for giving it your all, but in the end, it's the same as not getting results.
自分に言い訳をするだけの行為だよ、それは。
You're just making excuses for yourself.
そんなのやってみなければわからない。
You can't know that for sure unless we give it a try. Tomoe slammed the table in front of her while leaning closer to Yamaoki. Why? Why is he exerting so much pressure to defy me this time? What does he know about me?
やってみたこともやってみようともしなかったあなたにそんなこと言わせない。
I won't let someone like you who hasn't even tried tell me that.
言われたくない。
I don't want you to tell it to me.
あなたに何がわかる？何がわかるのよ。
What do you know? What?
希望も未来もあった子が、幸せになる資格があった子が、思いを遂げられないまま死んだ。
A girl with a hopeful future, who finally found the means to be happy, died without her thoughts ever coming to fruition.
殺された。
She was murdered.
なのに刑事のくせに私には何もできなかった。
Even as a detective, I couldn't do anything for her.
そしてこれからはもっとできなくなる。
It's impossible for me to do anything in the future.
だから私は。
That's why I...
それを自己満足だというのだよ、巴君。
That's the definition of self-satisfaction, Tomoe-kun. Oh. Got her. Yamaoki quietly stared at the rage in Tomoe's eyes. Her tremendous sorrow and frustration were insufficient to sway his heart.
犯罪者を捕まえても失われたものは何も戻ってこない。
Even if you catch the culprit, what has been lost will never return.
そして被害者やその家族もまた10日のものでなければその喪失感を埋めることはできない。
And it won't fill the sense of loss in the victims and their families unless you repay what they've lost.
10日とはすなわち被害者の命だ。
In other words, the victim's life. And needless to say, the souls of the dead can never be brought back. So, unless you're a god, it's impossible to fully heal the wounds of the people left behind.
ならば君の今やろうとしていることは誰にとっても何の価値も生み出さない無意味なものだ。
So what you're trying to do right now is ultimately meaningless. Won't create any value for anyone.
違うかね。
Or am I wrong?
しかし正義はあります。
But what about justice?
ならば警察が動いて犯人を捕らえる意義も理由もあるはずです。
Isn't that enough reason for the police to keep going and capture the culprit?
それを教えてくれたのは山沖さん、あなたでしょ？
Weren't you the one who taught me that, Yamaoki-san?
確かに以前私はそう言った。
Indeed, I did say that.
しかし それは君の正義で警察全体の正義ではない。
But what you're describing is your own personal justice, not the justice of the entire police force.
そして警察の正義は君のそれとは相反する判断を下した。
And the justice of the police could very well contradict your own judgment.
受け止めたまえ。
So, you need to accept this. Then what? Then the justice I believe in is different from that of other people? Is that what you want to say? The blood rushed to Tomoe's head. She suddenly leaned toward Yamaoke, with every last bit of her strength focused on clenching her fists. However, Yamaoke quietly gazed at her while calmly enduring her violent outburst.
頭を冷やすんだ、巴君。
Calm down, Tomoe-kun.
君のその考え方はいかにも感情的で短絡的だ。
Your thoughts are getting hasty and overly emotional.
英雄願望は結構だが、自分の思いを通すことが正義だというのなら、正義は人の数だけ存在することになる。
It's fine to have heroic aspirations, but you're saying your own beliefs are justice when there are as many definitions of justice as there are people.
君は我々警察がなすべきことをもっとよく考えるべきだ。
You need to think more about what we, the entire police force, should do. She couldn't say anything in protest. There was no meaning to revenge. Yamaoke had remonstrated her as much the other day. Remonstrated. Yeah. And media correspondence at the public relations office was more important than her involvement in this one particular case. That must have been what they determined. But then, how would she fill the empty void in her heart? How could she suppress the urge to be swallowed by the darkness of hatred and despair? And on top of that,
どうして
why? There was one more thing that Tomoe still couldn't understand.
どうしてこの要請を断ってくださらなかったんですか？
Why didn't you refuse this request?
あなたなら、私を推薦組に選んでくださったあなたなら、広報室からの打診があっても断れたはずじゃないですか。
You were the one who nominated me for the recommended group, so you could have refused even after meeting with the public relations office, couldn't you?
なのになんで？
And yet, why?
うん。
Yamaoke kept silent and didn't change his expression in response to Tomoe's fierce question. No matter how frustrated she was with him, she still had to ask.
あなたは去年、警備局の公安課長の椅子を蹴って、この書き打ちに来られたと聞きました。
I heard you badgered the director of public security last year to get me transferred to Tokihogushi.
そして10年以上も経って父が最後にメモに書き残したこの地に来たということは何かを掴んだ。
And I came to the place my father mentioned in his final note over a decade ago, expecting to finally grasp something.
そう私は考えていました。
I've been thinking about that this whole time.
巴君。
Oh, Tomoe-kun.
だから私をこの書き打ちに呼んでくれたこと嬉しかった。
I half read that and half like cleared my throat at the same time. So I was certain that you called me to Kakuichi.
きっとあなたが父の残した謎を解き明かすチャンスをくれたんだって。
I was certain you had given me the chance to solve my father's final mystery.
まどかのこと、推薦組のことは引っかかっていたけど、それよりもこの機会を作ってくれたことは本気で感謝していました。
I was happy to be near Madoka and part of the recommended group, but more than that, I was truly grateful for the opportunity you gave me.
なのに、なんで私をこの書き打ちから遠ざけようとするんです？
And yet, why are you trying to send me away from Kakuichi?
一体私は何のためにここに来たんですか？
The hell did you bring me here for? That's right, this was Kakuichi. Tomoe was assigned a post in Kakuichi, the last place her father ever visited. She was appointed to the honorary position of assistant director without the need to worry about the scorn of other officers. She felt that even if she protested, it wouldn't get overturned. She didn't care about any of the faction disputes, because she had her own purpose. She was able to work toward that without anger or disappointment, and without needing to put on a bold front. And yet, that purpose was being taken away from her. No matter how well her investigation results were being evaluated, this was taking away from the vision of hope Tomoe gleaned when she first came to Kakuichi.
確かに。
That's true. Before long, Yamaoke took a deep breath and drooped his shoulders before breaking the silence to address Tomoe in an attempt to calm her down.
要請の段階で断ることもできたな。
I could have refused the request.
だが、私はしなかった。
But I didn't.
なぜですか？
Why not?
広報室長の前のはキャリア組のホープで、将来の幹部候補だ。
Public Relations Director Mayano is the hope of the career group and a future executive candidate.
おそらく警察庁長官官房の実力者として、今後ラスワンを振るう立場となるだろう。
A talented man, likely to become the secretariat to the commissioner of the National Police Agency in the future.
そんな男に名前と実力を覚えられるのは、君のキャリア向上のためになるはずだ。
Having a man like that learn of your name and ability should certainly be valuable for your own career advancement.
私のため？何がよ？
This is for my sake? What?
何が私のためなのよ？
What about this is for my benefit?
そんなこと誰も頼んでない。
I never asked anybody for anything like this.
父さんの仇を取る以上のことが他にあるっていうのか？
How is anything more important than finding my father's killer? Tomoe tossed the letter down and spat those words out with the intensity on the verge of vomiting blood. She was shouting emotionally and no longer trying to maintain appearances, even though she believed in him. No matter how much she fought with her sister, she still believed this man was an ally who truly understood her. But in the end, was that just a false assumption? Was he simply keeping up appearances and not making any actual effort to understand how she felt? Was he just letting her play around under the scope of his own power in order to conceal his guilt at being unable to capture her father's murderer? Was that what this was?
出世すれば私が喜ぶと。
Do you think career advancement makes me happy?
何が正義だ？笑わせるな。
Where's the justice in that? Don't make me laugh.
あんたは偽善者だ。
You're a hypocrite.
父さんの事件のことで行き詰まったから、そんなおためごかしてごまかそうとしている。
You know my father's case is at a deadlock, so you're just hiding that for your own self-interest under the pretense of helping me.
別に私は偉くなりたくて警察に入ったわけじゃない。
Besides, I didn't join the police force to achieve greatness in the first place.
推薦組に選ばれたわけじゃない。
I didn't do it to be chosen for the recommended group.
それこそあんたの自己満足じゃないか。
All of that was for your own self-satisfaction, wasn't it?
偉そうなことをふざけな、青二歳が。
Don't you go overestimating yourself, Greenhorn.
力も後ろ盾もない貴様が気安く正義を語れるほどこの世界は甘くはない。
The world is not so soft that one as powerless and devoid of supporters as you can speak so innocently of justice. That was the very first time Yamoki raised his voice in anger. Without thinking, Tomoe recoiled back into the sofa behind her. She was scared, and more than that, she was sad. She was able to continue venting her anger on Yamaoki to this extent because she was subconsciously reacting like a spoiled child. But after he said that, she just felt sad. And she felt helpless, lost to despair. No matter how passionately you feel or how hard you work, when confronted by a massive organization, is there really no value to personal thoughts and convictions? That moment, tears began spilling out. She already knew, as a member of society, it was unfit for someone of her age to cry. But she just couldn't stop. And then Tomoe realized, no matter how much time had actually passed, time had stood still for her ever since that day. Even when she acted grandiose and behaved aggressively, even when she engaged in intellectual debates, Tomoe Minai hadn't changed at all since she was 17 years old. How shameful. She was no different from a spoiled brat throwing a tantrum, was she?
怒鳴ってすまなかったな。
I'm sorry for shouting.
いえ、自分は泣いてなどいません。
No, I shouldn't have cried. Tomoe stared straight at Yamaoki with her eyes still moist. Yamaoki picked up the letter that had fallen to the floor, dusted it off, and offered it to Tomoe with a bitter smile while thinking back on her indomitable spirit.
南井智恵警部、
Chief Inspector Tomoe Minai.
来月より警察庁広報室への異動を命じる。
You've been ordered to transfer to the Public Relations Office of the National Police Agency starting next month.
副将、
Repeat it.
南井智恵、警察庁広報室への異動辞令。
Tomoe Minai is being transferred to the Public Relations Office of the National Police Agency.
謹んで拝命いたします。
And that's an order.
ならば下がっていい。
In that case, you may go now.
失礼します。
Please excuse me. And then, Tomoe grabbed the letter containing her orders and left the chief's office without looking back. Yamaoki returned to his desk, then picked up the file sitting there and opened it. It was a formal letter of complaint against Assistant Director Tomoe Minai, submitted under the names of Deputy Chief Hata and 2nd Division Section Chief Okabe.
大行な真似を俗物が。
What overblown accusations. Philistines. He nearly spat the words out, recognizing the vulgarity and hostility between the lines. The contents were subjective and emotional, so any examiner receiving it would be embarrassed just reading it. In all likelihood, those men were using it as a means to get rid of Tomoe, since she was otherwise outside their reach. Although, even though the examiner at Prefectural Police HQ was from the same public security background as Yamaoki, there was no guarantee they would have the superficial level of wisdom necessary to recognize that. This complaint was secretly transferred to Yamaoki by a former colleague and friend. Dirty.
とりあえずこれは俺の胸だけのものとしておく。
Anyway, it's just my own personal opinion off the record.
時期の打分として無視するのもありだが、放っておくと最悪、ジョーちゃんたちが傷物になるかもしれん。
It's possible to just ignore this as the scribbles of children, but if you leave it alone, it could hurt the girl.
一応手は打っておけ。
For now, you should raise a hand. When it comes to the examiner, it's possible to downplay this or hide it, and it could just become a minor power struggle between them. But this time, there's also the possibility this issue could run without limits. And it could cast suspicion against Yamaoki's relationship with Madoka and his selection of Tomoe for the recommended group, in which case, it could end up hurting the sisters the most. With that in mind, Yamaoki decided it would be best to transfer Tomoe to another department until things cooled down. So, the letter from Public Relations Director Meino was actually a godsend. But Yamaoki couldn't tell Tomoe that. As obstinate as she was, if he told her about this, she wouldn't hesitate to fight the accusation. And even if she proved the accusation false, it would deepen the suspicion that she wasn't assigned to this post on her own merits. No, that wasn't the only problem. If that was all it was at a level she could manage on her own. But more importantly, the examiner were to focus on Yamaoki.
あとこれは内々の話だが。
Now, this is all strictly confidential.
どうやら警視庁公安の一部の連中があのお嬢ちゃんをマークしている。
But somehow, some of the people at the Public Safety Division of the Metropolitan Police Department has their eyes on that young lady.
しかも今回の告発のことを嗅ぎつけて、彼女をおとりか何かで利用しようと考えているようだ。
Furthermore, they've gotten wind of this accusation, and it seems they're thinking of using her as bait or something.
公安が
Public Safety Division.
一体何の目的で？
What on earth could they be planning?
わからん。
I don't know.
ただ彼女が探り回っていた事件と何か関係があるような気がする。
But I have a feeling it's connected to the incident she was investigating.
あるいはお前が追っていた例のやつがな。
Or the case you were pursuing.
警察庁の警備局。それに人事課のメンツとも連携して何やら妙な動きだ。
It's a strange move for the Personnel Division to cooperate with the Security Bureau of the National Police Agency. Public Safety Division wouldn't leak intelligence information to another organization, even a fellow police organization. Doing so would invite insider threats. And it wasn't typical for the security police to rely on information possessed by the Personnel Division either. But they almost always target police officers suspected of leaking information related to national scandals. Nevertheless, why would they be targeting someone like Tomoe, who was only investigating domestic cases that had no ties to foreign affairs? No, something did ring a bell. Even if it wasn't related to her, there was a case she was continuing to investigate even now. And so, those guys were... There was still a huge cloud of darkness around the case Tomoe's father was investigating. Enough so that Yamaoki still hesitated to tell her the full truth. In other words, the folks at Public Security were laying bait in the water Tomoe was swimming in, hoping to get rid of her. A horrible thought came to mind. What if the people at Public Security wanted to set up a workplace accident? In other words, they wanted to somehow cause harm to Tomoe. What if she was attacked, or even killed? Was that what they were hoping for? If they took advantage of the opportunity gleaned from an accident like that, they'd have good reason for intervening. Yamaoki simply couldn't afford to overlook the possibility. Members of the security police couldn't even reveal their mission details to their colleagues. It was their duty to do even inhumane things to the interest of national security.
あのお嬢ちゃんは一度現場から遠ざけておいた方がいいな。
For now, it's best to keep the young lady out of the field.
下手をすれば消されるぞ。
If things go poorly, she could be eliminated.
あの子たちの幸せをお前は未来の墓前に誓ったんだろ。
Didn't you swear in front of Minai's grave that you would make those girls happy?
なあ、ユウスケ。
Hey, Yusuke.
俺はお前の仇を討てそうにない。
Seems like I won't be able to avenge you.
だったらせめてあの子だけでもと思うのは間違っているか？
In which case, is it wrong for me to just want to save her? Yamoki sighed alone while gazing at the birds through the blinds. He too felt the same as her. He hated being a powerless individual facing down a massive organization. No, he may have felt even more strongly than she did.
あ、未来さん、
Minai-san.
ちょうどいいところに。
Perfect timing. Fujita waved his hand as he called out to Tomoe, but once he caught a good look at her, he caught his breath. She was crying. The Tomoe Minai he knew had red, swollen eyes. Even though he thought it was discourteous, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed and speechless upon witnessing such a gallant and strong-minded woman crying.
未来さん。
Minai-san.
ごめんね藤田君。
Sorry, Fujita-kun.
最近花粉症がひどくって、もうあんまり見ないでよ。
My allergies have been really bad these days. Don't look, okay? She really just hit him with the, it's a terrible day for rain.
あ、すみません。
Sorry. Fujita looked away with a bitter smile on his face while Tomoe wiped her eyes and nose with the handkerchief. Of course, he knew she was lying.
そうですね。
That's right.
今年って花粉の飛散量がすごいらしいですから。
They say there's a huge amount of pollen spreading this year.
あ、もしお困りでしたら、いい漢方薬を知ってますんで、今度持ってきますよ。
Oh, if it's giving you trouble, I know some Chinese herbal remedies. I'll bring you some next time.
ありがとう。
Sure, thanks.
それで何か用？
Anyway, did you need something? Tomoe pinched her nose with a tissue from her pocket, then turned to face him again. When Fujita saw that, he said, "Oh, that's right," and pulled an envelope out of his jacket pocket.
まずこれを。
First of all, here.
郵書係がさっき、南井さん宛ての郵便だって持ってきました。
The postal clerk brought this earlier. It's addressed to you.
私に誰から？
To me? From who? When Tomoe saw the sender's name, her eyes opened wide. It was from the recently deceased Nagisa Ozaki. Ooh.
消印の日付から見て、亡くなる2日前以前のものかと思われます。
Judging by the postage date, it was apparently sent 2 days before her death.
中身は読んでおりません。
I didn't read the contents.
そう。ありがとう。
I see. Thanks. It was in a lovely envelope, most likely a private message to her. With that in mind, Tomoe slipped it into her jacket pocket, intending to read it later.
次に、速水さんからの報告です。
Next, there's a report from Hayami-san.
死亡した尾崎渚ですが、左腕に注射痕が発見されました。
Regarding the death of Nagisa Ozaki, an injection mark was found on her left arm.
何の薬物を打たれたのかはまだ発見できていません。
They still haven't determined what drug she was injected with.
そして現場には車か何かで運ばれて、その走行途中で車道へと放り出されたか、自ら飛び降りた様子とのことです。
What's more, there were signs that she was being transported in a vehicle and either was thrown out or jumped out into the road mid-transit.
じゃあ走っている最中に転落したか、させられたってこと？
Then she was thrown or fell while the car was still running?
ええ、両方の肘と前腕部、大腿部の数箇所に擦過傷があり、左足首は捻挫していました。
Yes, there were scuff marks on both her elbows and forearms and several places on her thighs too, and her left ankle was sprained.
そして被害者はどうやら車道に転落してからしばらく自力で移動していたようでして、転落した場所から数メートルにわたって血痕が発見されました。
And apparently the victim had been moving around for a while after falling onto the road. Several blood stains were found a few meters from the place where she fell. Perhaps she was dragging her legs in a state of semi-consciousness, trying to get out of the road. It was clear that the direction she was moving in was toward the sidewalk.
その後、発見現場で力尽きて倒れたのは脳震盪か薬による昏睡か、
After that, she fell unconscious at the site where he discovered her at, either due to a concussion or drug-induced coma.
それについては頭部が損壊しているため鑑識では判断が難しいとのことでした。
The forensics team said that was difficult to determine since her cranium was damaged.
街灯の暗い場所に遺体があったのは偶然の可能性が高いですね。
There's a high possibility that it was only coincidence that the body was in such a dimly lit section of the road.
今回の事件では県警本部と柿内署による合同捜査本部が設置されるとのことです。
A joint investigation is being established so that Prefectural HQ and Kakuichi Station can collaborate on this case.
ニカの野郎が例によって名乗り出ているそうですが。
Seems that those punks at the 2nd Division are taking control, as usual.
どうします、ミナイさん。
What should we do, Minai-san? As Fujita said that, he was waiting for Tomoe to step in and say, I'll take care of it. In fact, he'd already talked it over with Section Chief Yamamura, and Hanada and Takayashiki had also offered to help. At first, they simply approached Tomoe out of mere curiosity, offering to be her bodyguards, but now they completely sympathized with her. However,
任せましょう。
let's leave it to them.
また横取りだって騒がれても面倒だしね。
It'll just be a hassle even if we make an uproar about them swooping in on us again. Huh? Fujita was at a loss for words after hearing that unthinkable response out of Tomoe. What did it mean? What on earth happened to the burning rage and vast sorrow she was displaying at the crime scene?
ミナイさん。
Minai-san,
わざわざ報告ありがとう。
thank you for taking the trouble to report that.
とりあえずこの件については県警が主導で動いてくれるみたいだしね。
For now, it looks like the prefectural police will be taking the lead on this matter.
私たちの出る幕じゃなさそうだから結果を待ちましょう。
Doesn't seem like there's any room for us, so let's wait for them to tell us the results.
それでいいんですか、ミナイさん。
Are you okay with that, Minai-san?
俺はこれから捜査一課に乗り込んで俺たちのいつも用意させろってあなたから命令を受けるつもりでここにいるんですが。
The 1st Investigation Division is all lined up and ready to take your orders. Tomoe's heart shook at that massive temptation. If she gave the order, Fujita would go out and meet with Prefectural Police HQ immediately. Honestly, he went so far above and beyond for her as a subordinate. No, as a partner. On top of that, Hanada, Takayashiki, Ando, pretty much the entire 1st Division recognized the young newcomer as a comrade and respected her. So, if there was anything they could do to help, they were on board. If she asked them to kneel before her, they would comply. But she couldn't. She couldn't do that anymore. Because her position, the power to command them, was already gone.
お疲れ様。
Thank you very much.
今日はもう上がってもいいわよ。
You can go home for today.
奥さんによろしくね。
Give my regards to your wife.
ちょっと待ってください。
Hold on.
一人にさせて。
Let me be alone.
お願い。
Please. After saying that, Fujita watched his boss solemnly turn her back and walk away. Tomoe went down the stairs past the 1st Investigation Division in order to avoid his gaze. Done dirty.
背景、見ない刑事様。
Dear Detective Minai-sama,
先日はいろいろと私のためにご尽力いただきまして本当にありがとうございました。
thank you very much for working so hard and doing so much for me the other day.
あの後何度かお電話を差し上げたのですがタイミングが悪くその都度外出中とのことでしたのでお手紙をお送りすることにしました。
I've tried calling you several times since then, but it's always bad timing and you were out, so I've decided to send a letter instead.
実はご報告があります。
In fact, I have something to report.
先日レイナと電話にて話をすることができました。
I was able to talk with Reina over the phone the other day.
それも信じられないことに私からかけたわけじゃありません。
It's hard to believe, but I was the one who made the phone call.
レイナからかかってきたんです。
Reina was the one who called me.
でも私にはあまりにも突然すぎてそれにレイナもなんだかぎこちない感じで。
But it was all too sudden for me, and maybe for Reina too, so felt a little awkward.
お互いに何から話していいのかわからず結局あまり会話できなかったのが残念でしたが。
After all this time, we didn't know what to talk about, so unfortunately we didn't talk much.
それでも一度会って お互いにゆっくり話をしようということになりました。
But we decided that we should meet up again so we can talk more leisurely.
なぜあんな事件を起こしてしまったのか、
Why did she cause that incident?
なぜ何も言わずに黙っていなくなってしまったのか、
Why did she leave without saying a word about it?
そして今お互いどんな思いを抱えて暮らしているのか。
And what did we think of each other now, after living far apart?
そのことを会った時に思い切ってぶつけてみようと考えています。
Those are the things I'm thinking of asking when we meet up.
もちろんそのことで私もレイナも過去の傷をさらに深めてしまうかもしれない。
Of course, that may very well reopen old wounds for both Reina and me.
そしてひょっとしたらやっぱり会わなければよかったと後悔するかもしれないという不安は今でもあります。
And there's still a chance that meeting her ultimately won't be for the best, so I'm still worried I may regret it.
でも私はやっぱりレイナと話をすることから始めたいんです。
But I still want to start out by talking with Reina again.
食材とか懺悔とかそんなものはもういらない。
Atonement, confessions, those no longer matter to me.
何もかも打ち明けて話してぶつけ合って、それでもレイナが私の友達でいてくれるかを私はあの子に尋ねたい。
We could talk and argue and share everything, but I still want to ask Reina to be my friend.
そして私も今度こそ本当の意味であの子の友達になれるかを確かめたい。
I want to make sure I can truly become friends with her this time.
だって私は今でもレイナのことが大好きだから。
Because I still love Reina.
レイナのせいで悲しいことも味わったけど、彼女との楽しい思い出も間違いなくたくさんあるんです。
Reina did cause me sadness, but there are definitely a lot of fun memories we had together.
その思いを私はあの子に伝えたい。
I want to communicate that to her.
そしてあの子が表に出せなかった悩みや苦しみを受け止めてあげたい。
And I want to be able to accept her despite the problems and the pain she caused.
あの子が昔私にそうしてくれたように。
Just like she did for me so long ago.
会った時あの子は笑ってくれるかな。
Do you think she'll laugh when we meet up?
話す時の癖はまだ残っているかな。
Does she still have that particular speaking habit?
いろんな不安だらけだけど、でもそれと同じくらい期待もあります。
I'm really nervous, but at the same time, I'm full of anticipation.
だから私は信じてレイナと会ってきます。
So I'll believe, and I'll meet with Reina.
そして刑事さんにいい報告ができるよう頑張っていきたいと思っています。
And I want to do my best so I can give you good news, Detective.
結果は後日お電話にてご報告します。
I'll call you later to share the results.
もしお忙しくてまた連絡が行き違うようでしたら、
Ugh.
自宅の電話番号を書いておきましたので、お手すきの時にでもお電話をいただけましたらとても嬉しいです。
In case you're busy and I have trouble getting in touch with you again, I wrote down my home phone number. I'd be happy to receive a call anytime you'd like.
それではまた。
Anyway, that's all.
今度お会いできた時には園芸部で一番綺麗なお花を持っていきますので、楽しみにしていてください。
Next time we meet, I'll bring you the most beautiful flowers from the gardening club, so look forward to it.
尾崎渚。
Nagisa Ozaki.
チキシャーチキシャー
Couldn't do anything. Couldn't help her at all. Even though I spoke so boldly, I... Ah! Pain. Alright, we're gonna have to take a quick little BRB. I need to stretch and get some more water. Unless it does a tip. Nope, it doesn't do a tip. Okay. Give me just a handful of minutes, and then we'll continue. Be back shortly. Alright, let's continue. Stretching over. She wasn't sure how much she drank, or which shop she stopped at before she made it here. Ugh. She's just like me, for real, for real. By the time she came to her senses, Tomoe was sitting on a park bench. The surrounding area was completely dark, and there was no indications of other people nearby. When she raised her head to take a look around, her line of sight sickeningly swayed in her drunken stupor.
今誰かに襲われたら完全アウトだな。
I'd be completely helpless if someone attacked me now. She bitterly smiled to herself while trying to suppress the urge to vomit. No matter how many times she thought about planting her feet and standing up, she couldn't put the strength into her legs.
警察庁期待の女警部。酔って暴漢に襲われて死亡か。
Female chief inspector, the hope of the National Police Agency, attacked and killed by a thug while drunk?
かっこ悪い。
Huh, totally uncool. But if she actually did get stabbed and fell down in a bloody mess, it probably wouldn't end so easily. She'd resist with all her might, trying to subdue the culprit, and in doing so, ultimately lower her chances of being saved. She could imagine the face her sister would make when she found out about it.
本当。バカみたい。
You're such an idiot.
バカですよ。
Yeah, I'm an idiot.
バカで悪かったな。ちっきしょ。
Excuse me for being so stupid. Damn it. Tomoe leaned back into the bench and gazed up at the night sky as she spat those words out. Frustrated as she was, the sky was filled with a sea of beautiful stars, shining in full view.
見ないさ。
Minai-san? She has ghosts speaking to her, she's so drunk. The twinkling of the stars suddenly distorted into an image of Nagisa's smiling face. Oh, she sees him in the stars. Oh, the corners of her eyes began to heat up, and her chest tightened in pain.
結局何も守れなかった。
In the end, I couldn't protect her.
それどころか事件に巻き込まなくても済んだはずの人を不幸にして。
In fact, it's completely the opposite. I brought misfortune onto someone who shouldn't even have gotten involved. I mean, I don't want to be harsh about it now, but yeah, that's what I was saying. No matter how much she regretted it, it wasn't enough. If Tomoe hadn't told her about Rina Rigu's whereabouts in the first place.
とんだ疫病神だ。私は。
I'm a plague of destruction. As the depression sank in, Tomoe's voice warped into a laugh that would likely give her a sore throat. Up until now, there were times she felt depressed because she failed, or something didn't work out. The sadness and regret drove her to drink enough to lose consciousness more than once or twice in the past. However, this was the first time she lamented her own negligence and powerlessness, and hated herself so much that she wanted to hang herself by the neck.
あまり熱心になりすぎると後で辛いぞ。
But if you get overly eager, it'll only cause you pain later on, you know? The words of her old boss at the youth division, Section Chief Kishimoto, echoed through her drunken head. Deep down, she knew it was a bad habit to get emotionally and personally attached to the ones involved. But even so, no matter how hard she tried, Tomoe couldn't abandon that mindset. The scars and memories from her time as a victim wouldn't allow her to do otherwise.
刑事向いてないのかな。
Am I not fit to be a detective?
私には無理なのかな。
Is this not possible for me? Then, Tomoe scooped up the can of beer she brought with her and guzzled it down her throat. She was long beyond the point she could even taste it. Tomoe was getting kicked out of Kakuichi next month. She hadn't even started on her father's case, and she couldn't catch the person who killed Nagisa. She was just clumsily and pitifully leaving it all behind. At this point, she didn't even care about the hate and ridicule of Okabe and the others saying, "Serves you right." In fact, what she felt most sad about was the people like Fujita who worried about her and placed their trust in her.
ごめんね。みんな。
I'm sorry, everyone. They were good people. No matter how disappointed they were, they'd still try to encourage Tomoe. But just knowing that made it all the more painful. Unfortunately, they weren't her friends. They were comrades tied to a trusting workplace relationship. As their dependable boss, Tomoe's pride wouldn't allow them to cross that line by being overly sympathetic to her troubles.
今さら何をかっこつけてんだろうな、私。
Who am I even trying to impress at this point?
だけど。
But still. Just then, she heard a strange sound coming from the distance. Uh-oh. Oh boy. What could it be? Was someone nearby? It's a familiar sound effect. No, that wasn't it. She felt something like this before, not that long ago. That's right. She remembered. It was in Hinamizawa. After the gas was drained from her car when she was walking to the phone booth, she heard the same sound back then. When she tried to stand up, she immediately collapsed on the spot. She had no strength left to fight it. Feeling like a fish on the chopping block, she gave in and thought to herself, "If you're going to kill me, do it now."
いいわよ。やりたきゃやれば。
Whatever you want to do, fine.
もう別にどうでもいいし。
I don't really care anymore. At this point, all her hope and pride were exhausted. She was just a soulless shell who'd lost its purpose. If you want to kill me, feel free. If you want to sacrifice me to some curse, I'll go willingly. The sound slowly grew louder. Pat, pat. Tap, tap. But even so, she wasn't afraid. Although, that may have been due to the loss of sanity in her current drunken state. Before long, the sound continued echoing until it was right beside Tomoe, and then it stopped. It certainly felt like someone was standing beside her. However, they didn't say or do anything. The silence continued for a while, but Tomoe eventually grew frustrated with the oppressive atmosphere and quickly turned her head to look up. Aw, shit, I never should have smoked that shit. Now I'm in the nebulous zone. Huh? However, there was nobody there. In fact, when Tomoe looked at that surrounding area, it was no longer the original park where she had fallen.
何ここ。
What is this place? Tomoe shook her head many times, thinking she was excessively drunk. But despite that, an indescribable space like a fantasy world was laid out before Tomoe's eyes.
一体私。
Why
ど
on
うして。
Why on earth am I?
あなただったんですね。
No, no, now I'm speaking to Hanyu. So it was you, wasn't it? Huh? That moment, she could feel a voice coming not through her ears, but directly inside her head, so she quickly took a look around. And then...
理科の運命を切り開く大切なかけらの一つ。
You're one of the most important fragments in carving out Rika's destiny.
隙間はようやく埋めたけど、端の方で欠けたところがどうしても見つからなかった。
The gap has finally been filled, but I couldn't find the missing piece at the edge no matter how hard I looked.
でも、ようやく見つけました。
But I finally found it.
あなた。誰。
Who are you? An unfamiliar girl dressed in shrine maiden's clothes suddenly emerged in this empty space. It was a face she hadn't seen before, and she could see things resembling horns on her head. Who on earth was this girl?
あなたは不思議な存在。全く僕たちのことを知らない関係のない人のはずなのに。
You are
あなたの存在が運命の歯車を変えてしまう。
I forgot she takes long gaps in between what she says. You are a mysterious being, even though we don't know you at all. Even though you seem to be a completely unrelated individual, your existence will be pivotal in turning the gears of fate.
奇跡を必然へと昇華する。例えるならそう。トランプのジョーカーのような人。
In order to make a miracle happen, it's necessary to have a person like the Joker in playing cards.
ジョーカー。それに運命の歯車って一体何。
Joker? What's all this about the gears of fate?
歯車は全てが同じ向きにばかり回っていては噛み合わない。
The gears won't turn if the cogs are all spinning in the same direction.
正しい動きをしない。
They have to move in the correct way.
中にはいくつか正反対の動きをするものがなければいけない。
It won't work unless some are spinning in the opposite direction.
僕たちを取り巻く運命の歯車は強固すぎて、なかなか僕の思い通りには流れを変えてくれなかった。
The gears of fate were too strong, so the flow couldn't be changed as easily as we wanted.
だから僕はちょっと奇跡を集めてリカの幸せを導き出した。
So, I've been gathering small miracles here and there in order to win back Rika's happiness.
そうしなければ流れは僕たちの思い通りには動いてくれなかったから。
Because without that, the flow would never move in the way we envisioned. She couldn't understand. Tomoe couldn't understand the meaning behind what this girl was saying.
でも僕は気づいたのです。
But I realized.
実は動いていない歯車がまだあって、それを動かすための歯車が一つ回路から抜け落ちてしまっていたことを。
The truth is, there's still one gear that isn't moving. In order to get everything moving, the one gear that fell out of sequence needs to be reset.
それはとても小さなものだけど、それを加えて動かせば止まっていた歯車が動き出し。
It's very small, but if you put it back in place and start to move it, the other gears will move along with it.
今までびくともしなかった大きな歯車の向きが逆へと変わって動き出す。
The largest gear, which hadn't budged until now, started to move in the opposite direction.
そしてその動きは一見僕たちの邪魔をするもの。
And at first glance, that movement seems to be hindering us.
でもその歯車一つの動きで奇跡は必然となり、運命のサイコロは僕たちの手へと移る。
But without the movement of a single gear, an inevitable miracle will put the dice of fate back in our hands.
その歯車があ
That
な
gear,
たです。
that gear is you.
かけらに残ったままどうしても外せなかったよどみを取り除き、あなた自身はそのよどみと共に離れてゆくけれど、その結晶をより堅固なものへと変える存在なのです。
By removing the stagnation from within that fragment that we couldn't remove, you yourself will drift away with that stagnation. And you are the one who can transform it into something more tangible. Is this a dream? Am I witnessing some ridiculous dream?
見ない友へ
Tomoe and I.
過去に苦しみ、それでも前に進もうとあがき続ける強い意志の人よ。
You've suffered greatly in the past, but you're still a person with a strong will to move forward.
僕たちにはあなたが必要。
We need you.
いえ、リカにはあなたが必要なんです。
No, Rika needs you.
待ってよ。
Wait,
リカって誰？
Rika? Who?
それにそもそもあなたは一体何者？
And more importantly, who on earth are you?
僕はお社様。
I am Oishiro-sama.
あなたの大切な人たちを傷つけ、命を奪ったとあなたが誤解して憎み続ける上々の存在。
A supernatural being that you still misunderstand and continue to hate for allegedly hurting and taking those dear to you. What? The blood suddenly ran to Tomoe's head as she reflexively tried to stand up, but she lacked the strength in her legs, so she fell in place. Still, even though she turned to the girl with rage in her eyes, the girl responded with a timid smile devoid of fear.
憎いですか？
Are you hateful?
悔しいですか？
Frustrated?
そう。あなたのその黒い感情が僕たちには不可欠なもの。
Yes, those dark emotions are essential to us.
毒を持って毒を制すの例え通り、強固な黒い意志にくさびを打ち込めるのは黒い感情でしか成し得ないのです。
Like fighting fire with fire, only strong dark emotions can resist a dark will.
待っています。
We'll
あ
be
な
wait.
た
We'll be waiting for you
をこのひなみ沢で。
in Hinamizawa. Well, thank you, Hanyu, for your cameo appearance. Huh? When Tomoe came back to her senses, she found herself on a park bench. She glanced at her watch to check the time. It was nearly morning.
寝ちゃったのか。
I fell asleep.
寒い。
Wow, it's cold. Chill ran all the way to her core, and her body suddenly began to shake. She had completely sobered up. There was a dull pain in her head, but her thoughts were cool and collected. Fortunately, she didn't seem to have caught a cold despite sleeping in a place like this. More than that, it was a miracle that a young woman left defenseless like that was able to wake up in perfectly good health in the morning.
奇跡か。
A miracle? It was a peculiar dream. She couldn't remember the face of the girl who appeared in her dream, but she could vaguely recall bits and pieces of her words. There was definitely something about turning gears around and... I remember it was back then. When Rinariku attacked me, that girl was talking to me as my consciousness began to fade away. And that memory came back inside my head to form that dream. But looking at it in hindsight, I can't deny the possibility that what I saw and heard back then was a dream too.
毒を持って毒を制す。
Fight fire with fire.
黒には黒でぶつかる。
Resist darkness with darkness. At first, she couldn't quite understand the meaning, but as she continued to ponder it, little by little, she was able to piece it together. Fight hate with hate. It wasn't as simple as standing up and fighting with revenge in your heart. That simply made it a collision between two egos. In other words, it's about approaching your opponent with the same passion, but also with understanding. It is only because you feel your own strong dark emotions that you're in a position to understand your adversaries, and in doing so you also know how to calm your opponent. Humans are not wild animals. With few exceptions, they rely on reasoning rather than instinct. So when a person chooses to attack another, there's a reason that drove them to that action. In order to identify that, you must first know the other person and their sense of values. Find the source of despair that nobody else could understand, and unravel the dark emotions that drove them to solitude. That's right, because compassion and animosity are two sides of the same coin. And, as those words repeated in Tomoe's head over and over, she realized that the hopeless despondency she had been feeling until last night was no longer there.
なるほどね。
I understand.
そういうことか。
That's how it is. Tomoe stood up as she said that. She glanced at the empty can in her hand and then at a trash can a short distance away, then tossed it in a snap. The can raced through the air in a slightly arcing path. A dull sound rang as it collided with the aluminum on the edge and then fell right in place. You got this, Tomoe. Never should have smoked that shit. Oh, now I'm speaking to Oyashiro-sama. If you speak of justice, the others will laugh at you. What a naive, helpless thing to say. If you speak of evil, the others will berate you. What a callous, cruel thing to say. Everyone remains silent, but the truth is, everyone already understands. Federica Bernkastel. Spring, 1983. 6 months after Tomoe Minai is transferred to the Public Relations Office. Are we just like done? Clock wipe. Everyone's okay. So who's the gentleman on the right? Do I know this man? In the end, no progress was made on the joint investigation with HQ, huh? That bastard Okabe seems pretty on edge. Because now he's saddled with 2 mediators from prefectural HQ here.
他の山が全然回りきれてなくて、この間畑副所長からお叱りをいただいたってさ。
The others couldn't stop running in circles, so he had to receive a chat from Deputy Chief Hata.
いい君だよ。
Huh, serves him right.
身の程を知れってんだ。
They should know their place. After all that, they couldn't find anything resembling a clue at the crime scene, and they didn't even have a profile on the culprit. Even searching through lists of classmates and known degenerates, they couldn't find anything at all. There was almost no doubt that the case would go unsolved, so the morale in the field was on the decline.
そういや、あれからあの人、今頃どうしてるかな。
Oh yeah, about you know who. How do you think she's doing now?
なんだ、藤田。
What's that, Fujita?
お前、惚れたのか？
Do you have a crush on her?
バカ、違うよ。
You moron, it's not it.
広報室なんかに飛ばされて、腐ってやめちまってるんじゃないかって。
She was sent off to the public relations office. Wonder if things went rotten and she had to quit.
それが心配でさ。
That's what I'm worried about. In fact, Fujita couldn't believe that another detective that capable would ever come out of the National Police Agency or the Metropolitan Police Department. Her extraordinary work ethic and analytical capability were far above anyone he'd ever worked with, regardless of age or gender. And if she had taken part in this joint investigation, maybe she would have been able to make full sense of her abilities to squeeze out a profile on the criminal. At the very least, Fujita and the others believed that Tomoe was capable of it.
なんかあれ以来、一家って気が抜けたような感じじゃないか。
First Division seems like it's been on a decline since then, hasn't it?
山村さんが悪いわけじゃないけど、やっぱ違ってたよな。
Not to say that Yanamura-san is doing a bad job, but it's definitely not the same.
そうだな。
That's true. Shiro Hanada agreed with Fujita's assessment while sitting next to him. After all, her investigation policies were clear and easy to understand, as opposed to running around based on intuition without any tangible confirmation. Of course, they couldn't deny that it was still fortunate that incidents were investigated or consistent with Tomoe's analytical methodology. Still, there are people out there with the power to make their own luck. That too was one of her strengths.
ま、警察みたいなセクショナリズムの社会に、ああいう破天荒な女性は合わなかったってことだろうさ。
Well, suppose such a groundbreaking woman isn't a good fit for an organization as factionalized as the police force.
もったいない話だけどさ。
What a waste.
誰が破天荒だって？
And who is this groundbreaking woman? Oh shit. Huh? Fujita and Hanada jumped in surprise when they suddenly heard a voice calling from behind. And when they looked back, the person standing before them was... Oh, it's Oishi. No.
Minai-san?
It's blonde-haired lady. Minai-san.
何よ、幽霊でも見たような顔して。
What's the deal? You look like you've seen a ghost.
足はちゃんとあるわよ。
Look, I have legs.
いや、そうじゃなくて。
No, that's not it.
なんでここに？
What are you doing here?
別に警察官がここを訪れるのは変じゃないでしょ？
Is it really so unusual for a police officer to be visiting here?
なんかおかしい？
What's odd about that? Indeed, even though Tomoe worked for the public relations office, she was still a police officer, so it wasn't that unusual for her to come to Kakuichi Station. Although, knowing her character, she wasn't the type to say I just came to say hi. So, what was the meaning of this?
藤田くん、花田くん。
Fujita-kun? Hanada-kun?
早速だけど、二人にもまた足やってもらうわよ。
I know this is sudden, but would the two of you lend me your aid once again? Huh?
じゃあ。
Then you mean...
と、その前に山村課長ね。
Oh, before that I'll have to talk to Section Chief Yamamura.
はあ、もっと前にアンニャローのところにも行かなきゃ。
Right. I should have gone to him earlier.
あとは...
Also... And even though Tomoe was no longer in a position to order them around anymore, Fujita and Hanada immediately responded to her request by saying, "Understood," and quickly rushing out. Their sense of servitude was so deeply ingrained they were like loyal dogs. But as Fujita ran down the corridor, before long his cheeks split into a huge grin.
山内所長、こちらにサインを。
Chief Yamaoki, sign here? Sure.
まどか君。
Oh, right, Madoka-kun.
南巡査です。
It's Officer Minai.
お間違いのないように。
Make sure you get it right. Damn right. Right. Yamaoki looked embarrassed after being corrected in such a sharp, cold tone.
ではその南巡査。
Then, well, Officer Minai?
はい、山内所長。
Yes, Chief Yamaoki?
私に何か？
Do you need something from me?
実はこの前知人から演劇のチケット2枚もらってな。
Actually, I happened to receive 2 theater tickets from an old acquaintance of mine earlier.
よかったら今度。
Would you care to go this time?
申し訳ありませんが、私の休日の予定は3ヶ月後まで埋まっております。
My apologies, but my holiday schedule is completely booked for the next 3 months.
その後でもよろしければ、ぜひ誘ってくださいませ。
But if it's some time after that, feel free to invite me. She'd been so blunt that she wouldn't even give him the time of day. She'd been like this toward him for the last half a year. When he told her that Tomoe was being transferred to the public relations office, she was deeply upset. Crying, yelling, telling him off, and in the end, even throwing things around. There were still marks on his desk from when Madoka struck it with a golf club back then. In that way, she was really so much like her sister. And so, Yamaoki let out a sigh.
まどか君。
Madoka-kun.
だから何度も話したようにこれには深い理由が。
Like I've told you many times before, there was a very good reason for this.
ええ、あったんでしょうね。
Yes, I suppose there was.
ですから、私の感知するところではございません。
So that's not what concerns me.
私がこうやって怒っているのも、
対局を見ることのできない矮小な一巡査が極めて個人的に不満を抱いているだけですので。
I'm just angry because I'm one extremely disgruntled tiny police officer who can't see the big picture.
どうぞお気になさらないでくださいまし。
So please don't mind me. He was at his wit's end. With things as they were, no progress would be made unless they talked about it, but he couldn't say anything in the current situation. Madoka had finally returned to living in Yamaoki's house, but she had been living in Tomoe's old single-occupancy apartment until last month. With that in mind, you could say their relationship was still getting better, but it was hard to deny the possibility that just one more little thing could spell the end of their engagement. Damn. Though, that catastrophic pattern was typical in relationships, regardless of age difference. He just had to let her sort out her feelings. Also, Madoka caused a great deal of turmoil since she first started at Kakuichi Station, enough so that she was expecting a 1-month suspension. However, Yamaoki had lived alone for so many years that when she moved out, the space felt especially small and lonely. It was hard for anyone who knew him to believe, but he had already deeply bowed his head and apologized to her over 20 times. But she still hadn't forgiven him, and that Cold War continued until, even now. And so, all it took was a single fierce glare, and he couldn't think of anything else. He easily recognized the outcome of any action he took, so he never did anything. There was nothing he could do. Because of that, he ended up repeating the same sad questions and answers, and in some ways, maybe even being taken advantage of by his feelings for her. Just then, he heard a knock on the door. Normally, he would have asked the person to announce who they were before entering the room, but in this case he wanted to shake off the dreary atmosphere, so he responded, "Come in," in a dignified voice. And then... Sis? The door swung open and she came in saying, "Excuse me." Madoka and Yamaoki's eyes opened wide in shock as soon as they recognized Tomoe. Naturally, they didn't know in advance that she was coming. When Tomoe noticed the reaction, she had a mischievous smile on her face as she donned a salute.
南井智警察庁長官官房の総務課長の代理でご挨拶に伺いました。
This is Tomoe Manai, greeting you on behalf of the Director of General Affairs and the Secretariat to the Commissioner of the National Police Agency.
少々お時間よろしいでしょうか。
May I ask a moment of your time? Of course.
じゃあ私は。
Then I'll...
別にいてもいいわよ。
It's alright, you can stay.
いずれ遅かれ早かれみんなの耳に入ることなんだし。
This is something everyone will hear sooner or later. Huh? Madoka stared on in disbelief as Tomoe spread the file in her hands out in front of Yamaoki. Inside were a bunch of documents clipped together.
警察庁長官官房から愛知県警と柿内署への協力要請です。
This is a request for cooperation between Aichi Prefectural Police and Kakuichi Station on behalf of the Secretary of the Commissioner of the National Police Agency.
了解をいただき次第、後日正式な通達書を送付させていただきます。
A formal letter of notice will be sent at a later date after receiving your consent. The heading inscribed on the cover said this: Establishing an operational test regarding the use of profiling techniques to investigate unsolved cases. What is this?
実は先日、前の広報室長のご紹介で総務課長、長官官房長とお会いする機会がございまして。
Actually, Public Relations Director Manio introduced me to the Director of General Affairs the other day. I even had the opportunity to meet up with the Secretary of the Commissioner.
そこで少々ご歓談のお時間をいただくことができました。
I was able to chat with them for a little while. It was totally coincidental, but incredibly fortuitous. It was a rare 1-in-a-million opportunity that she had earned through her strong convictions. A few days after Tomoe started at the Public Relations Office, the Secretariat heard that she was a fellow alumnus of Kashima University, so he called her into his office just to give her encouragement. During their chat, Tomoe offhandedly mentioned her profiling investigation technique to the Secretariat. And she mentioned that it had already been tested in Kakuichi with wonderful results.
さすがに僭越な行為と承知しておりましたが、今までにまとめた資料をたまたま持参しておりましたので、これ幸いと思って目を通していただきました。
Of course, I knew it was presumptuous of me to bring it up, but I did casually bring the file with me summarizing the results so far. Unfortunately, he took the time to look through it. Both the Secretariat and the Director of General Affairs were a bit surprised when they saw it. After all, these profiling techniques were published in lengthy documents written in English, so it was difficult to decipher the details without putting significant effort into it. And this young elite trainee casually translated and summarized it, achieved amicable results. while testing it on real cases and assembled a report detailing all her findings. The secretary was always interested in pursuing new techniques. Thanks to all the work she put into it, he was particularly interested.
それを受けて官房長のお力で報告書の内容を科警研にも紹介してくれることになりました。
Thanks to that, the Secretariat pulled some strings to get the contents of that report submitted to the National Research Institute of Police Science.
そこで偶然にもその実行例の詳細を全て管理しておりましたので、科警研の総務部長にそれらをレポートとして提出したのです。
And by some fluke, the details of the report escalated all the way to the general manager of NRIPS. NRIPS. NRIPS? RIP. The reaction was stunning. Originally, the National Research Institute of Police Science was conducting their own research on Western profiling techniques. But even though they understood the basic premises, they had no operational data to analyze. And even when they tried to pursue that endeavor, progress was extremely slow because of the sectionalized nature of the police force. Detectives in the field were also anxious that new techniques would jeopardize their positions. Meanwhile, Tomoe showed up with all the data compiled from her time at the Ibaraki Prefectural Police Department and her 2 months at Kakuichi and offered it up for free, so they welcomed it with open arms. In response to that, the general manager of NRIPS invited the director to a hearing with her. Of course, the fact that Tomoe was a woman certainly did pique some curiosity, but even so, she opted to use that to her advantage. After talking it over, the director gave an official proclamation that the process should be tested on an actual investigation. And as a result, NRIPS assembled a research team and launched a full-scale investigation into profiling methodology.
しかし君は広報室で。
But you're with the public relations office.
ええ、ですから私は関与いたしません。
That's right, so I'm not directly involved.
その代わり、広報室係長としてこの件についての報道対応を任されることになりました。
Instead, as subsection chief at the public relations office, I've been charged with reporting on this matter.
報道？
Reporting?
これをマスコミに公開するのか？
This is being released to the mass media?
はい。
That's right.
実はテレビ局に企画書を持ち込みました。
In fact, I brought the proposal to the TV station.
欧米における最新の捜査手法の特集をやらないかと。
Don't you think the latest investigation methods from the West would make a nice feature?
3ヶ月以内に迷宮入りの難事件を解決してみせるって大見え切って密着取材にも許可を出したら喜んで飛びついてきましたよ。
Mysterious unsolved case cracked in 3 months. They'll be proud to declare that, and I happily jumped at the chance to be the person covering it. Huh? Madoka shouted in astonishment. Tomoe had always hated working with the media, so what on earth brought about this change of heart?
でも捜査内容の開示は良くないってお姉ちゃん言ってなかった？
But sis, weren't you the one who said it wasn't good to disclose the details of active investigations?
もちろん彼らに見せるのはほんの一部、上っ面の部分だけよ。
Of course, we'll only show them part of the information, just the surface details.
それにそれとは別に女性向けインタビューを2本独占で受けることになってるから、実際の彼らの優先順位はそっちの方が上。
Plus, the station requested 2 exclusive interviews with a woman, so in reality their priorities are elsewhere.
そういうわけで女性の権利拡大の弁士として思いっきり威勢のいいことを語ってあげるって言ったら、もう大喜びで協力してくれるってさ。
They just wanted to have a strong speaker about the expansion of women's rights, so they were more than happy to cooperate.
悪人。
You're terrible.
ありがとう。最高の褒め言葉よ。
Thank you. That's the best praise I can receive. Tomoe nonchalantly shot that back. Disregarding her name to obtain results was normal for her. But compromising and cooperating with all manner of people was totally different from Tomoe's old way of thinking. So, Madoka, feeling like she was dreaming right now, pinched her own cheek hard. It was incredibly painful. Just then, Fujita knocked on the door and then entered the chief's office.
Minai-san!
Minai-san!
刑事一課に大きな段ボールの荷物が届いてるんですが、あれって何ですか?
The First Investigation Division just received a large package. What's this about?
ああ、藤田くん、それは私の荷物なの。
Ah, Fujita-kun, that's my luggage.
中身はパソコンだから、扱いは丁寧にお願いね。
There's a personal computer in there, so handle it with care.
パソコンですか?
Computer?
一体何に使うんですか?
What on earth are you doing with one of those?
遅れてるわね、藤田くん。
Don't fall behind, Fujita-kun.
これからはパソコンの時代よ。
The age of computers is just starting, you know?
あ、山沖所長。柿内署の合同捜査本部内に専用線の配置を行いたいので、ご許可をいただけますでしょうか。
Oh, Chief Yamaoki. I'd like to set up a dedicated line between Kakuichi Station and the Joint Investigation Headquarters. Would you be willing to sign off on that? Sure. Still unable to dismiss his feelings of confusion, Yamaoki simply nodded. Didn't she say she wasn't interested in computers before? It was a completely unthinkable change. Was this really Tomoe Minai? Was there any chance she was actually replaced by an alien taking her form? The next moment.
山沖所長。
Chief Yamaoki? Tomoe turned to him with a serious expression and deeply bowed her head. And then?
ありがとうございました、所長。
Thank you, Chief.
私はもう少しで正義というものを見失うところでした。
I was on the verge of losing sight of justice. The look on her face as she said that had a pleasant atmosphere, suggesting she had dispelled her earlier demons.
感情的な復讐心や自己満足の行いは、自分の失敗を認めたくないという見苦しさの産物です。
Emotion-fueled revenge and the pursuit of self-interest are the detestable products of one who refuses to acknowledge their own failures.
自分は正しいと一人で思い込んで、誰にも頼らず、誰の言葉にも耳を貸さない独りよがりの未熟なまがいものの正義です。
I had a foolish, immature, and misguided view of justice. I thought myself the only one correct and refused to listen to or rely to anyone else.
でも、それでは本当の悪には勝てない。
But that way of thinking can't defeat true evil.
いえ、戦えない。
No, can't even fight it.
こちらが犯罪を取り締まるため、あらゆる手段と知識を蓄えているように、相手も同様の準備をしてこちらを叩き潰そうと、その武器を磨いている。
That we have the knowledge and means to crack down on crime, our adversaries are polishing their weapons and making preparations of their own.
そんな奴らに一人でできることなんてたかが知れています。
I realize now that those sorts of people can't be overcome on my own. So, Tomoe gathered all her hatred and resentment and cast them aside, and she replaced her selfish thoughts and convictions with a general desire to gain the understanding of the people around her.
自分の正義と警察の正義、
My justice and the police department's justice.
相反するときは自ら屈して妥協して警察の正義に合わせるのも一つのやり方です。
When these two are in conflict with one another, you have to compromise a little and match the police version of justice.
しかし、その逆も確かにあります。
However, the opposite is also certainly true.
さまざまな権力と発言力を握る各方面の人々すべてを説得し、理解してもらい、その上で仲間になってもらう方法です。
You can persuade the people around you in various positions of power, try to get them to understand and, more importantly, earn their cooperation. Of course, that takes a great deal of time and effort, and sincerity, and there's still no guarantee of success. But even so, the possibility is greater than zero. It's definitely not impossible. So, Tomoe identified her small pieces of luck and used them to their maximum effect. Her contacts at the National Police Agency, the staff of the National Research Institution of Police Science, and the profiling investigation methodology she learned with Hanjo and her comrades at the Ibaraki Prefectural Police Department. She never spared a moment of free time either. She was always negotiating with them during her usual daily work, consulting with them, requesting they share data, and seeking their approval on matters. And even if it seems an easy thing to say, accomplishing that in just half a year was no simple task. But even so, she never gave up. She earned the help and cooperation of so many people by approaching other parties over and over and persuading them, trying to win their agreement. And as a result, she was able to greet everyone here today.
今回の一件が成功すれば、その成果は科警研のものです。
If the results in this case are successful, findings will go straight to NRIPS.
私自身が関わることはほとんどありません。
I, myself, will have pretty much no direct involvement.
ですが、正義はあります。
Still, this is about justice.
それこそが私が警察官として今ここにいる理由です。
That's the reason I'm here, as a police officer. From the perspective of many police officials, she looked like a soft-souled person. She was also aware of how people perceived her as a woman. But that was what she wanted. If they were willing to lend Tomoe their strength, or as long as they weren't trying to get in her way, it was ultimately beneficial for her. Tomoe wasn't simply performing well to achieve career advancement, and she wasn't investigating crimes to clear up her own hatred or personal grudges. To go even further, she wasn't doing that for the victims or their families either. The police shouldn't carry out investigations seeking revenge. There absolutely is justice in this world to judge wrongdoers and admonish their sins. And those who stand before the wall of justice with evil in their hearts will surrender to its power and discipline themselves. It was Yamaoki who taught Tomoe that. In order to create a society that can believe in that, the police need to fight crime with the full backing of the law. To that end, it's necessary to understand the psychology of the criminal, and sometimes even be in sync with them. It was a truly naive way of thinking, but it was first class. Even if my effort and feelings aren't always rewarded, so what? Rather than twisting the world to my own intentions, I'll bet everything on living my life honestly. It's fine to get hurt, and even if you fall, even if you're pushed down, you have to get up again and again, no matter how hard it is, doing your best to maintain your convictions. That's why I chose to follow the path of the police force.
Tomoe-kun,
Tomoe-kun, you.
それに、そもそも悪が手段を選ばない以上、正義だってそうあるべきですよね。
Besides, evil will never stop at anything, so why should justice be any different?
一人の悪役に5人総出でタコ殴りにしても、巨大ロボットで踏みつけたとしても、正義である限りは卑怯なんて考えてはいけないんです。
Even if 5 evildoers combine into one villain that octo-punches you, even if you get stomped by a giant robot, as long as justice still lives, it's cowardice to think anything otherwise.
だって、正義は必ず
It's like, what the hell are you
勝たな
talking
きゃい
about?
けないんですから。
Because justice must always prevail.
お姉ちゃん。
Sis.
未来さん。
Minai-san. Madoka and Fujita could only stare on, looking overwhelmed as Tomoe so proudly declared that. But Yamaoki wasn't like that. Her answer was so earnest that it was comical, and he couldn't bear the absurdity of how exasperatingly resolute she was. Hey, Yusuke. This incredibly bold willingness to take action, to never give in. Your daughter's exactly like you, from head to toe.
そんなわけですから、しばらくまたお世話になります。
And so, I'll need to ask for a little more of your help going forward.
どうかお手柔らかに。
Please don't be too hard on me.
ああ、好きにやりたまえ。
Of course. Do as you please. Very well. Let's see this girl's future all the way through to the end. Yamaoki said that to himself and watched her back as she turned and stepped out of the room.
本日より大巻女子学生殺人事件の合同捜査本部に科警研による特別チームが参加することとなりました。
Starting today, a special team at NRIPS will be joining the joint investigation for the Omaki schoolgirl murder case.
プロファイリング捜査の運用マニュアルを作成するための重要なテストケースとなりますので、皆様にはご協力とご理解をよろしくお願いします。
This will be an important case for creating operational guidelines on profiling investigation techniques. Thank you very much for your cooperation and understanding. The senior researcher dispatched from NRIPS spoke respectfully, but with a dignified demeanor, as he addressed the entire investigation team. In the center was the person responsible for this investigation headquarters, Director Yamaguchi, and Section Chief Dojima of the 1st Investigation Division at Prefectural HQ. And Tomoe was sitting on the left corner of the executive seating area of the platform. And so, with that out of the way,
今回の事件にあたっては被害者が当時交際しておりました沢村康平が入院中の病院から転落死した事件。
The victim of this case was dating Kohei Sawamura at the time of his fatal falling incident at his hospital.
そしてその死亡に関わったとされる看護師の平沼陽子の自殺事件との関連性を調査した上で犯人像の割り出し分析を行う予定です。
And by investigating the relationship with the Hiranuma suicide incident, almost forgot who that was for a second, who is considered related to his death, we are planning to conduct analysis to develop an image of the criminal.
なお、現地の捜査にあたっては、所轄署の協力が不可欠であり。
Additionally, the cooperation of local authorities will be essential in this operation. While listening to the explanation from the meeting facilitator, Section Chief Dojima, Tomoe pulled a photo out of her handbag. It was one of Nagisa Ozaki's belongings found at the crime scene. A copy of the photo of Nagisa and Reina found in her pink wallet.
Ozaki-san, やっとここまで来たよ。
Ozaki-san, I finally made it here. She whispered that to herself while gently smiling at the photo. In addition to the photo, the contents of the wallet included a train ticket bound for Okinomiya and a receipt for a store she visited on the date of the incident. In other words, Nagisa went to see Reina Ryugu, although it wasn't clear if they were able to meet and talk, but it meant she was caught up in the incident after coming back from there. And there were 2 separate times Tomoe was attacked by that girl. With that in mind, it was highly likely that Reina Ryugu was involved in some way, even if she wasn't the actual culprit. No, she has to know something.
待っていなさい、竜宮レーナ。
Just you wait, Reina Ryugu. Damn. That's right, everything starts now. I won't let it end. Not a chance. No matter how cunning, or even supernatural my foe may be, I'll bring this chain of tragedies to a close. And for that reason, I'll use everything at my disposal and keep on fighting.
それから、今回はマスコミ関係者向けの報道取材対応を警察庁広報室に担当していただきます。
And from here on, the National Police Agency's Public Relations Office will be in charge of disseminating information to the mass media.
南井係長、どうぞ。
Please welcome Subsection Chief Minai. At Section Chief Dojima's urging, Tomoe stood up and took a bow. She could see Madoka standing near the opposite wall, offering an encouraging smile.
広報室特務係長の南井です。
My name is Minai, the specially appointed Subsection Chief of the Public Relations Office.
報道取材対応を担当いたします。
I will be in charge of all media correspondence.
よろしくお願いします。
I look forward to working with you. I won't give up. Ever. I'll make that miracle a reality. I'll carve a path to destiny with my own 2 hands. Boom. All right, so a lot of bad things happen, but it mirrors a lot of like what we got in the main story, which a lot of shit has to happen, and then you get visited by Hanyu, and Hanyu's like, you're so fucking close to getting this all, we're piecing it all together. If we go just one more time, one more roll of the dice, maybe we'll get it this time. So I'd imagine, assumingly the next arc, you would think, is gonna be like, oh, the same, again, mirroring the main story, like, oh, put it together and everything's gonna work out this time. Trust. Promise. Nothing bad. Thank you. Oh, a lot of reading there. That was like a lot of reading condensed into like almost 3 hours. My throat is like raw. Ugh. Up a tip. Dancing in the palm of my hand. Well, we must read then. Hold, we're not done?
De, どうします?
So, what are you going to do?
このまま放置か、処分か。
Leave it alone? Dispose of it?
まあ、私としては、さっさと片付けるに越したことはないと思いますがね。
Well, if I was in your position, I think it would be best to clean it up quickly.
ダメよ。そういう請求な考え方は。
Don't be so impatient.
警察ってのはどんな形であれ身内を殺されると徹底的に追いかけてくるんだから。
I feel like I recognize that voice. The thing about the police, if you kill anyone even tangentially related to them, they'll relentlessly pursue you.
あなた一人がスケープゴートになるというのなら別に止めないけど。
But if you'd like to run off alone and become a scapegoat, I won't stop you.
冗談じゃないですよ。
Be serious.
命知らずな刑事の命一つと自分の貴重な将来じゃ全然割が合いません。
I have a reckless detective's life and my own precious future to worry about. It's not worth it. He had a bitter expression on his face, but his tone was light. Even if left alone, it wasn't a major threat.
それにしてもちょっと意外ですね。
Anyway, I am a little surprised.
関係のありそうなところは根こそぎ潰してかかるのがあなたのやり方だと思っていましたが。
Thought your way of doing things was to weed out anyone who seemed remotely connected.
何の罪もない女の子を殺したことに良心の痛みを感じて、今さら人道主義に方向転換ですか?
You killed an innocent girl without feeling any weight on your conscience, but now you're turning to humanitarianism?
あなたも言うわね。
You're one to talk.
別にあの刑事さんを憐れんでのことじゃないわ。
It's not like I took pity on that detective.
ただちょっと面白い実験ができるかなってね。
Simply figured this could potentially lead to an interesting experiment.
実験?
Experiment?
ええ。
Yeah.
どうやらあの子、あとちょっとで末期発症に入りそうなの。
Seems that girl will reach the terminal phase before long.
でも、その状態にもかかわらず平静を保っている。
But she's keeping calm despite her condition.
うまくやれば、新しい臨床データを入手できるんじゃないかしら。
Things go well, this may lead to new clinical data.
なるほど。モルモットですか。
I see. A guinea pig, eh?
いや、さっき言った人道主義の言葉を撤回させてください。
Then let me take back my earlier claim about you being a humanitarian.
あなたは正真正銘の外道ですよ。
You're truly a monster.
少なくとも人間じゃない。
At the very least, you're not human.
ありがとう。
Thank you.
最高の賛辞だわ。
That's the highest form of praise.
それじゃ、潜伏する連絡員たちにはそのように伝えます。
Alright, I'll report this to our undercover contacts.
よろしいですか?
That's alright.
ええ、よろしくお願いね。
Of course, thank you.
すべては、己が手のひらの上で踊る戯れ。
This is all like a play. Everyone is dancing in the palm of my hand. Huh?
ま、それもいいでしょう。
Well, that's fine, I suppose.
どちらが菩薩で孫悟空なのか、後で思い知らせてやりますよ。
I'll show you which of us shall emerge a god. Intrigue into the next arc. Oh man. The story of Higurashi continues and unfolds more. It'll never end. Before I close out of this, I'll just highlight the next section we do read here. I believe it is... Read it. Connecting fragments. Which is weird. Didn't we do a thing These are the additional fragments added in the console version of Chapter 8, Matsurubayashi. They should be read after completing Somitsushi, Kageboshi, and Tokihogushi, which we've all done. These fragments explore the additional characters introduced in the console arcs. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. So we did a thing like connecting fragments back in the main story. I think that, like it's saying here, for the Chapter 8 thing. If you'll recall, back in Chapter 8, where basically you were presented a bunch of boxes, and then you had to, like, click the boxes in a certain order to then get the story unlock, and then you get the extra little bit. It was almost like, it was like the closest to, like, a gamifying, like, oh, you gotta collect this fragment to go to this fragment, and yada, yada, yada. This is that, only, I believe, if I'm understanding this in my research from now months and months and months ago at this point, that this is the same thing, but when they did the console, you know, re-release, they've added more fragments that have to do just with these new characters that we've had been introduced in these additional console arcs. So it's like, these, in theory, would have been back with all the other connecting fragment boxes that we did, but now it's just, in this little package, they've created its own little space thing, and like, here you go, here's just the additional fragments. So we'll get some additional backgrounds, bits and bobs and stories to all these new characters. Can't wait. Can't wait to read more. Not sure when we'll do that. This next week might be a little weird schedule wise, so what I'm saying is we might not get to this, like, on Tuesday, like we normally probably would. But we'll see. Don't count anything out. That's how I'd put it.